Chapter 500. What was the Dark House? Su Yun, who had just arrived in the Beiyang region, did not understand at first, but after the explanation from the people here, he understood. The Dark House was an extremely famous rogue cultivator organization in the Beiyang region. This organization gathered many experts from all over the Beiyang region. These people's strengths were uneven. There were 1st grade of Spirit Master and 10th grade of Spirit Master, but no matter who it was, they all had their own skills. Some had outstanding strength, some had high cultivation, some were proficient in formations, some were good at alchemy, some had superior intelligence, and so on. The entire organization of the Dark House was similar to a mercenary group. If one had enough profound coins, they could hire them to do anything. They did not ask for right or wrong, they only cared about profound coins, and money could drive them to do anything. Although the Dark House reeked of money, and was no different from the Chamber of Commerce, they were the most powerful and wealthy rogue cultivator organization in the Beiyang. No one dared to ignore them. This time, the Dark House's recruitment was carried out once a year. The recruitment was carried out in a chaotic manner, facing the entire Beiyang region. The rules were very simple. The Dark House would choose an area as the battlefield and issue 10 qualifications to enter the Dark House. All the cultivators who obtained the qualifications could use this to join the Dark House. In addition, the Dark House had also allocated 100 million profound coins as a reward. The Dark House's recruitment was extremely harsh. Who knew how many people had sharpened their heads to get in? Now that there was such an opportunity, the people who signed up were naturally extremely enthusiastic. Su Yun carefully looked at the rules, and already had an idea in his mind. Obtaining the qualification certificate was secondary. This so-called chaotic battle was actually not restricted. Anyone could participate, and in the chaotic battlefield, anything could be done without any restrictions. Whether it was killing for treasures, deceiving or betraying, no one would spit on or curse at them. This was the cruelest battlefield. The Dark House wanted to use this method to tell those who wanted to enter the Dark House what they faced every day. The 10 qualification certificates were also extraordinary items. Each qualification certificate could receive 10 million profound coins. This was the advance money that the Dark House gave to the members who were about to join. They could use this money to arm themselves. Perhaps this was an opportunity to make money. However, for a large organization like the Dark House to recruit people, the people who signed up were probably not ordinary people. If they were not careful, they might even lose their lives. The only thing that made Su Yun feel at ease was that the chaotic battle scene was not completely sealed off. In other words, anyone who wanted to come out could not be controlled at all. If they could not endure the cruelty of the battlefield, they could immediately leave. Of course, once you left the battlefield, you couldn't come back out. After all, you had to register at the registration point to enter. After registering, you would carry a mark on your body. When you entered the battlefield, the mark would be used up. Only those with the mark could enter the battlefield. Those who obtained the qualification certificate could not casually leave the battlefield. They had to pass through the battlefield and reach the Dark House's temporary station at the end in order to exchange for the qualification and become a member of the Dark House. At the same time, they would receive a reward of 10 million profound coins. In response to this, Su Yun had the intention to register. At the very least, if he couldn't win, he could still forfeit at any time. After thinking for a while, Su Yun headed straight to the Dark House's registration point in Yen Xian City. Of course, his goal was not to be qualified to enter the Dark House. In fact, he had no interest in joining the Dark House. He did not like to be someone else's lackey. There was only one reason why he wanted to participate in this chaotic battle: kill and steal. It was too difficult to seize the 10 qualifications. Relying on the qualifications to profit was a bit whimsical. Although Su Yun's ambition was not small, he was a practical person. He understood the current situation and knew his position. If he wanted to do something, he would do it within his ability. Of course, the premise was that these things could be done through hard work. Registration was very simple. After paying 100 profound coins, he was imprinted. 2 days later, he would enter the Dark House's spatial profound array set up in Yin City. Through the profound array, he would enter the Dark House's tame Dragonland on the west side of Beiyang for a chaotic battle. The spatial profound array could only transport 100 participants at a time. However, the Dark House had set up 100 of them in Yin City, which was enough for teleportation. After Su Yun finished registering, he went to the tea house to drink tea and listen to the latest news. Without exception, the hottest topic of discussion in the tea house was naturally the recruitment of the Dark House. Almost every table was discussing this matter. Su Yun secretly scanned the people who were drinking tea. Their cultivations were either extremely low or extremely dense. Those who were not spirit master cultivators were all service staff, living here did not care about cultivation, and those who were spirit master cultivators, their cultivations were at least at the 6th grade of spirit master cultivators. The peak of the 5th grade, who had just entered the battle strength of 7,000, were extremely rare, usually seeing over 7,000, 8,000 or 9,000 battle strength. There were even some with more than 10,000 battle strength, but that was already an extremely rare existence. After staying in the tea house for a day, Su Yun found a place to cultivate for another day. 2 days later, it would be the day of the Dark House's chaotic battle. The 10 qualification items would be thrown in at noon. When the qualification items were scattered into the tame Dragonland, the participants would be able to enter. When Su Yun walked to the front of the 100 spatial profound array, there was already a sea of people here. There were participants everywhere, tall, short, fat, thin, men, women, old and young. At a glance, there were experts everywhere, and most of them were existences with battle strength of 8,000. Su Yun's battle strength was not outstanding at all. Everyone stepped into the profound array, turning into white light and disappearing one by one. Su Yun hesitated for a moment, but was not in a hurry to enter. The profound array would close after 6 hours. If one did not enter the profound array within 6 hours, then they would not be able to participate in the competition. The entrances around the tame Dragonland had already been guarded by the people of the Dark House. They could only leave and not enter. Although there were tens of thousands of people gathered here, the speed at which they entered the profound array was very fast. In the time it took for an incense stick to burn, the originally crowded place immediately became quiet. Su Yun was still standing guard beside the array, neither entering nor leaving. "Hey kid, you have an imprint. Why don't you quickly enter the array?" The Dark House staff member who was guarding the array asked Su Yun. Su Yun did not say a word. He closed his eyes and stood by the side of the array to rest. Seeing that Su Yun did not speak, the man was not angry. He muttered to himself and could not be bothered with him. Soon, 6 hours were about to arrive. When the guardian saw this, he immediately turned around and cast a spell, preparing to remove the formation. But at this moment, Su Yun, who had his eyes closed the entire time, suddenly jumped into the formation. Hua! A burst of light immediately enveloped his body, and his body became as light as a soul. After about 3 breaths of time, Su Yun fiercely fell to the ground with a bang. The pain from falling to the ground did not affect him, but he was rather concerned about this magical, space profound array. This was different from the arrays he had seen before. This array seemed to quickly disintegrate a person's body for a short period of time, then fuse it into the light, and then reassemble it using the soul as a mold. Because right now, he had a strange feeling of back pain, and he believed that everyone who used this profound array would not be able to avoid this feeling. Su Yun took a deep breath and immediately took out the immortal mystical scarlet blood sword and the tribulation fire sword from the sword sheath. He carefully looked around. The surroundings were filled with trees. These trees were all over 20 meters tall and incomparably thick. The branches and leaves were dense, making it difficult for the light to penetrate. As a result, the surroundings were extremely dark, but this darkness did not affect the existence of the spirit master. Su Yun could still easily see everything around him. The heavenly scale divine eye in his eyes had already been removed by him. At this level, Su Yun no longer needed the heavenly scale divine eye. He took a few steps forward, but after just a few steps, he stopped and immediately hid behind a large tree. The reason why Su Yun dared to participate in such a chaotic battle was because he had something to rely on. It was not the limitless sword arts, nor was it the sword sheath's mother sword, but the Longjin's wristband that he was wearing. Not only could this item conceal one's cultivation, it could also conceal one's aura. No expert would be able to detect it. In other words, as long as Su Yun hid his aura well, no one would be able to detect it. Following the aura, he moved forward bit by bit. He quickly moved and shuttled behind every tree. Finally, he found the source of the smell of blood. It was about 100 meters away from the transmission point. Along the way, there were traces of fighting, and along with the bloodstains, broken corpses began to appear. One by one, they fell to the side of the road. Their corpses had long since turned cold, and their souls had been scattered. They could not be any more dead. As expected. Seeing that, Su Yun secretly took a deep breath. It was just as he had expected. The Dark House's recruitment was open to the entire Beiyang region, and there were nearly 10,000 people participating in the Yen Xin city alone. How many people would there be in the other cities? Su Yun did not know how many cities there were in the Beiyang region, but after thinking about it, the ultimate martial world was huge, and the tame Dragonland was not small either. How could the Beiyang be small? If each city had 10,000 participants, then how many people would be competing? The 10 qualification items were simply treasures that were as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Many people had broken their heads and bled for them, and during the first period of time it was the most crowded time. Although the profound technique array would separate everyone, due to the limitations of the venue, everyone would not be too far away from each other. At this moment there would definitely be an impact that covered the entire tame Dragonland, and in this impact, most of the participants would be eliminated. 6 hours was the limit. If the profound technique array closed after 60 hours, Su Yun would definitely wait until 60 hours later to enter. Bang 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 bang. Just as Su Yun was deep in thought, a series of loud noises suddenly sounded out in front of him. Following that, several figures flew randomly in the forest. The trees were knocked down, the profound chi rippled in all directions, and the shocking aura was like a knife that cut in all directions. It's not over yet? Su Yun's heart tightened. Relying on Longjin's wristband, he quietly approached that side. He gripped the Tribulation Fire Sword and the immortal mystical Scarlet Blood Sword tightly, and a trace of evil flashed through his eyes. Slowly, he leaned over, and 4 figures appeared in Su Yun's line of sight. 3 on one side, 2 on the other, forming 2 formations, crazily attacking each other. Each of them had a fighting strength of 8,000. However, none of the 5 of them were in a good state. They were all injured to varying degrees, and 2 of them were even at the end of their tether. Su Yun secretly looked at the team of 2 people. Although they were in a miserable state, they had the upper hand by relying on their cultivation. On the other hand, it was difficult for the 3 of them to gain the upper hand in battle. The injuries on the 3 of them were also increasing, and the gap between them and their opponents was also increasing. I have to find a chance. Su Yun stared at the chaotic battle between the 5 of them and thought to himself. Chapter 501. The 3 of them seemed to be brothers, they looked very similar to each other, and the 2 of them were a man and a woman. They were not considered good-looking, they were very ordinary, but their coordination was extremely tacit. There was a connection between the profound skill and profound skill, there was a mutual exchange and cover, causing people to be unable to help but exclaim in admiration. The three of them attacked the woman in a triangular formation. They realized that the man was in charge of defense, while the woman was in charge of offense. The man's attack methods were not strong, and could be ignored for the time being. If they could break the woman, the three of them would be able to deal with one person easily. And it was precisely because the other party was attacking one person without a care for anything else that the situation became more and more difficult to fight. The woman had no chance to attack, and the man was in charge of defense, so he did not have any strong attacking methods. However, Su Yun secretly realized that the two of them did not reveal any signs of panic, but instead looked like they did not care at all. Just then, the woman who was surrounded by the three of them suddenly raised the corner of her mouth, forming a strange arc. Following that, a large number of branches and vines grew out from her body, spreading out in all directions. What? The three of them were shocked and immediately dodged, but it was too late. The vines and branches extended out at an astonishing speed, and directly bound the three of them. Damn it! One of them clenched his teeth and roared, "Use the three flames of life, roast her!" "All right." The other two responded. The three of them chanted incantations, accumulated profound skill, and prepared to attack the woman. Ha 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 ha, 3 ants, naive, too naive. Ha 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 ha, watch me kill you later, seal your souls in my puppet seeds, and play with them forever, ha 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 ha. The woman laughed non-stop. She did not care about the profound skill of the three people. Her confident laughter was filled with ridicule, as if she had already determined that the victory of this battle was hers. But Su Yun, who was in the shadows, noticed something. In that instant, the woman was no longer attacking, but defending. Her profound skill, profound chi and so on all changed from offense to defense, and the true divine spirit chi started to fill the air. As for the man who was in charge of defense, he had already changed from defense to offense. The two of them could actually exchange offense and defense. The woman attracted the firepower, and the man harvested it. The three of them were dead for sure. If they wanted to kill and steal their treasures, they could not let the other party kill their opponents first. That way, the difficulty of dealing with them would increase greatly. Su Yun's face turned cold. Thinking about his parents who were still missing, thinking about Long Xianli who had died in Suicide Valley, his heart was filled with endless pain and coldness. Cultivation coin. A magic treasure. What he needed the most right now. Only by obtaining these things could one obtain everything. Whatever. Whoosh. Su Yun moved. The divine wind sword technique was activated, and his speed was pushed to the limit. Like a shadow, he instantly appeared behind the woman. The killing intent was like thousands of steel needles, stimulating the woman. What? The woman's expression changed drastically. Before he could even turn his head, 2 sharp divine swords came flying at him. The surging pure divine spirit chi, with an imposing manner that could tear apart everything, wrapped around the sword's edge. Poochie! The woman's chest was pierced through, and her defense instantly crumbled. At the same time, the 3 men's Triflame Suicide also attacked. Almost at the same time when they destroyed the Triflame Suicide, the man on the outside had already prepared his trump card and attacked the 3 men. Everyone's attacks seemed to have reached the same level. The lady's defense was destroyed by Su Yun's sneak attack. She was unable to defend against the combined power of the 3 men's triple flames of life. Adding that she was severely injured, she was instantly incinerated into ashes. But at the same time, the heads of the 3 men flew into the sky. The man had unleashed the swift-wind godly blade, slicing everything below their heads into pieces. It was extremely terrifying. In just a breath of time, 4 people had died. However, the sudden change caused the man who was the main attacker to be extremely shocked. How could it be like this? He regained his senses and looked at the woman who had turned into ashes, his heart trembling. Looking at Su Yun who flew out from the ashes, the man's entire body was trembling. He did not even sense Su Yun's existence, and at that moment the other party was standing in front of him, but he could not feel the other party's chi, and was even more unable to see through his profound cultivation. You. Who are you? The man trembled. You're skilled in both offense and defense, flawless. If I'm not mistaken, you and the woman who just died are the legendary poison ghost Double Banes, right? Su Yun said indifferently. You know us. The man retreated a few meters and said vigilantly. Robbing and killing rogue cultivators, massacring cultivator caves, the two of you are notorious. Who doesn't know of you? The two of you are at least in the 6 digits on the evil list. How could I not know? Su Yun said. These two people had heard of them outside of Beiyang. Then who are you? The man clenched his teeth and said. Who I am is not important. What's important is you. You guys killed all the people down here, right? After a series of fierce battles, with serious injuries, you are no longer my match. Now, if you want to live, I can show you a way out. If you don't want to live, you can fight with me. Su Yun said. What do you want? The man said. Hand over all the cultivation coins on you and I won't kill you. Su Yun said. Hearing that, an unfathomable light flashed past the depths of the man's eyes. He asked in a low voice, Really? I don't want to waste time. All right then. The man nodded his head. He reached into the space bag, and very quickly, a cultivation coin card was taken out by him. He slowly approached Su Yun, and the cultivation coin card in his hand was also extended out bit by bit. Actually, everyone has done so much. It's just for the magic treasure and cultivation coin on these people. The people who can participate in the competition are all not ordinary people, and you can legally kill people here. No supreme expert will investigate. It's a good place to get rich, but compared to money, life is more important after all. There are no grievances between us, sir. Here is all my savings. You can take it, as long as you don't hurt me. He said respectfully. The cultivation coin card was already in front of Su Yun's eyes. But, in that instant, a pitch-black array formation suddenly appeared behind Su Yun. The array formation was silent and formed extremely quickly. It was impossible for anyone to detect it. When it appeared, a large number of pitch-black and sharp tentacles immediately extended out from the array formation, directly piercing towards Su Yun's head and chest. Poochie! The sound of flesh being pierced rang out. The pitch-black circular formation collapsed and blood splattered into the air. The man's eyes widened as he spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was filled with shock as he tried his best to lower his head to look at his chest, only to see that it had been pierced through by dozens of sharp swords. His entire chest was about to break. It was extremely terrifying. Looking at Su Yun again, under his pitch-black cloak was an indifferent face, and his vicious eyes were faintly discernible within the haze. How can I believe a person who kills people and steals their goods? Asking you to hand over the cultivation coin is just to lower your vigilance. Su Yun said indifferently. He extended his hand and took out the cultivation coin card in front of him, and gently placed it into his storage ring. You're so despicable. The man tried his best to speak, but before he could finish, he ran out of strength. So the flying swords that were stuck in the man's chest immediately flew out and drilled into the sword sheath, disappearing without a trace in the blink of an eye. The man's chest was separated from the top, and he fell from the sky, falling to the ground and dying miserably. His soul flew into the air. Su Yun pulled out the tribulation fire, and with a casual wave, his soul dissipated. He landed on the ground and began to search through the corpses. Seizing the qualification item was too far away. Su Yun did not think that he would be able to obtain it, and he believed that many people thought the same. Everyone came here to seek benefits from others. Whether it was magic treasure, cultivation coin, or even qualification card, Su Yun collected them all. He did not count them, as it was best to leave this kind of place as early as possible. Fighting with others head-on was the most disadvantageous, and even if he could defeat them, he would still be injured. Under such conditions, the more injuries he suffered, the greater the risk of death. The treasures from dozens of corpses filled Su Yun's bowl. There were a few space bags hanging on his body, but this was not enough. It was still too early to leave. In this ultimate martial world, magic treasure was cultivation coin, and cultivation coin was cultivation. No one would dislike having too many cultivation coins on them. After a rough estimation, the total amount of magic treasure and cultivation coin on his body should be around 2.5 million. Although some of them were poor, the poison ghost double demons were rich, bringing Su Yun a total of 1 million cultivation coins. He didn't dare to stay for long. After plundering everything, he immediately left this place. Judging from the terrain, this should be the edge of the tame Dragonland. The central city of the land was a high mountain with a rugged terrain and a large number of fierce beasts. Ordinary people did not dare to enter. If one did not pass through the center of the land, they would not be able to reach the other end of the land and would not be able to hand over the qualification item. Therefore, the center of the land was a path that all participants had to pass through. Of course, this was not a path that Su Yun had to pass through. He carefully advanced forward, holding the Tribulation Fire Sword and the immortal mystical Scarlet Blood Sword in both hands, advancing step by step. However, after taking a few steps, Su Yun's face suddenly tensed up and he immediately stopped in his tracks. After hesitating for a moment, he hurriedly retreated. He only stopped after retreating dozens of meters. He stared at the dense forest in front of him and thought for a moment. He immediately activated his profound chi and dispersed it in the form of wind. Walala, the profound chi overflowed and filled the air. If the other profound cultivators saw it, they would definitely look down on Su Yun for being wasteful. But at this moment, the profound chi that overflowed forward was like sand, as if it was stained with something. A faint screen appeared in Su Yun's line of sight. As expected, this place had been set up by someone. You actually saw through my star-absorbing array? Amazing, amazing. It seems like you're not an ordinary person. At this moment, a mocking voice floated out. Su Yun looked in the direction of the voice and saw a hole in the formation in front of him. A man with short green hair walked out. The man was dressed in leather armor. He was tall and had a scar on his face that connected to the right corner of his mouth. He looked extremely terrifying. Seeing this person's appearance and characteristics, Su Yun recalled the person he had heard others talking about in the tea house not long ago. Array Seal Master Green Heart Connection. Su Yun focused his eyes and became vigilant. However, at this moment, the chi meridian in his body suddenly became hot. At the same time, all the spirit essences in his body became restless at the same time. His entire body was like a furnace that was gradually heating up. It became hotter and hotter, drier and drier. This feeling, could it be that he had broken through? But how could he break through for no reason? Su Yun was stunned. Before he could react, a ray of light rushed out of the top of his head and into the clouds. The majestic, profound chi exploded in all directions. What? You broke through? Green Heart Connection was also shocked, but he quickly understood. He gritted his teeth and said, "This star-absorbing array of mine can extract the profound chi of the people inside the array and transfer it to my body for me to use. I never thought that it would stimulate the spirit essences in your body, causing it to break through and evolve. It helped you by one step and allowed you to break through. Damn brat, if I were to absorb all of you today, wouldn't I be taken advantage of by you?" With that, Green Heart Connection took advantage of the change in Su Yun's cultivation realm and rushed over. Chapter 502. Su Yun never thought that he would break through at such a critical juncture. After entering the sixth stage of cultivation, all aspects of his abilities increased crazily, the spirit essence expanded and improved, the chi meridian was completely new, everything changed in an instant, as though he had been reborn. However, even if he had broken through, Green Heart Connection was not afraid at all. Although he could not see Su Yun's strength, the person who came here was only around the 6th stage. As a peak 6th stage cultivator, even if he could not win against the other party, couldn't he run? Furthermore, looking at Su Yun's ignorant and vigilant face, he did not look like someone with great strength. At most, he was just a mediocre person who had hidden his cultivation. Green Heart Connection's intuition was very accurate. In the ultimate martial world, those who used magic treasure to hide their cultivation were actually those who were very weak, because the strong did not need to hide their cultivation. Furthermore, those weak people were unable to see through their strong cultivation, so wearing magic treasure to hide their cultivation was like drawing a snake with feet. Green Heart Connection held onto a 5-foot-long green wooden rod. The tip of the rod was extremely sharp. Like a spear, it pierced straight towards Su Yun. A faint profound chi floated at the top, and attacked along with the wooden rod. Su Yun held onto both of his swords and blocked it. Clang! The two swords smashed onto the strange green wooden rod, releasing a crisp sound. He thought that he would be able to easily cut it in half, and even if he could not cut it in half, he would be able to force it away. However, he did not expect that when the two swords touched the wooden rod, the surface of the wooden rod flashed with lines. Following that, a mystical and mysterious shockwave spread out, directly sending the two swords flying. Su Yun retreated a few steps and stared at Green Heart Connection. Green Heart Connection stared at Su Yun with a smile on his face. "It's really not painful at all, is that all you can do?" With that, he raised the green wooden rod in his hand, only to see that the wooden rod was once again covered with runes. These runes flickered and dimmed, and bits of green light flowed into his chest from Green Heart Connection's palm. He smacked his lips and said, "The taste is not bad, your profound strength." Su Yun frowned. Only then did he check the profound strength in his body, only to realize that he had used up quite a bit of it. This was definitely not caused by the attack just now. In other words, his profound strength should have been absorbed by the Green Heart Connection. Could it be that wooden rod could absorb other people's profound strength? What kind of heaven-defying treasure was this? Su Yun pondered. He put away the immortal mystical scarlet blood sword and the tribulation fire sword, then extended his hand and touched the pitch-black sword behind him. To be able to reflect other people's weapons and absorb other people's profound energy, this kind of opponent could not be defeated just by relying on destructive power. He had to rely on absolute violence and cruelty in order to crush them. Su Yun's entire body released traces of evil spirit chi. They were like venomous snakes, converging towards his palm, only to see the hand slowly twitching. A pitch-black sword was pulled out. The evil aura became even stronger. "You sure have a lot of weapons, but the result is the same." Green Heart Link sneered in disdain. Then, with a shout, he charged forward once more. Seeing that, Su Yun closed his eyes. Green Heart Link was startled, but at this moment, how could he stop? The green wooden stick fiercely smashed forward. Its speed, strength, and xian qi were all top-notch. None of them were weak. But at this moment, a black light flashed in front of Green Heart Link, and then, dang! A violent sound came out. Green Heart Link's arm shook. He lowered his head to look, only to see that his weapon was stuck to a pitch-black sword. It actually didn't get blown away? It seems like you have some skills, but have you forgotten how powerful my weapon is? Green Heart Link secretly urged. The wooden stick once again flashed with lines, and the profound chi on the black sword started to be drawn over. But in that instant, a large amount of evil chi suddenly surged out from the black sword's blade. The condensed evil chi turned into an evil soul, and directly rushed towards Green Heart Link. Green Heart Link was not an ordinary person. His reaction was extremely fast. He immediately released his left hand that was holding onto the sword hilt. His 5 fingers quickly changed, forming a seal, directly striking towards the evil soul. Little sorrowful palm. Boom. A golden ring appeared on his palm and smashed towards the evil soul, directly shattering it. Insignificant skill, you want to use this to defeat me? What wishful thinking! Green Heart Link sneered. But in the next second, he felt a pain in his chest, a tearing feeling assaulted him. He looked down, only to see that a sword had been stabbed into his chest, and Su Yun's other hand was holding onto the hilt of the sword. Speed! So fast! When did he pull out this sword? When did it stab at him? Green Heart Link was shocked. Wung 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 wung, the sword sheath trembled, and a large number of flying swords rushed out. There were more than 1,000 of them, and they were as dense as rain, covering the sky and covering the sun. Like locusts, they smashed towards Green Heart Link. Green Heart Link's eyes widened. When had he ever seen such a scene? He had seen the Imperial Sword Technique, but he had never heard of the Imperial Sword Technique. Poochie poochie poochie, the fierce sword tore through his defense and directly pierced into his flesh. Green Heart Link was pierced into a hornet's nest on the spot and died miserably. Su Yun released the immortal mystical Scarlet Blood sword and touched the sword sheath again. He took out the Tribulation Fire sword and chopped off Green Heart Link's head. His head was pierced by the Tribulation Fire sword, and his soul dissipated. Green Heart Link was definitely dead, and it would be difficult for immortals to save him. Seeing this, he secretly heaved a sigh of relief. With a wave of his hand, the 1,000 swords flew back into the sword sheath, and the 2 swords were kept. But just as he was relieved, a sound of something tearing through the air came from behind him. An ice-cold, killing intent swept over like a gale on a winter night. Someone was sitting on the mountain and watching the tigers fight. Su Yun's face tensed up. He often used this method to trick others, but he never thought that there would be a day when others would trick him. However, killing Green Heart Link did not exhaust all of his profound chi, so he still had the strength to fight. Although the opponent's killing intent was strong, his profound chi did not seem to be strong. Su Yun suddenly turned his head, raised the death sword and fiercely slashed forward. All of the profound chi and strength in his body was imbued into the death sword. The death sword's body was like a black meteor that streaked across the sky, straight towards the man's head. After learning the Divine Wind sword technique, Su Yun's reaction and speed were extremely fast. That person obviously did not expect Su Yun to react so quickly, and anxiously raised his sword to block, but kacha! A crisp sound came out. The sword that the man was holding high was directly cut into 2 by the death sword. The pitch-black sword seemed to have entered an unstoppable state, and directly cut down his head. The sword was cut in half, and his entire body maintained a blocking posture, not moving at all. Su Yun drew out the Tribulation Fire again, and cut off the man's head. Another person killed. But he did not stop and immediately retreated, and when he was a kilometer away from the place where Green Heart Link and the other man died, and when he realized that no one was chasing him, he turned back and started to plunder their things. If there was anyone else in the dark, they would definitely chase after him, but he had already retreated so far away, and no one was chasing after him, so it could be seen that he was being overly suspicious. Green Heart Link's strange rod was a good treasure. Even if he could not use it, it could be sold for a lot of cultivation coins. To be able to absorb the opponent's profound chi for his own use, what kind of treasure was that to a spirit cultivator? After obtaining the 2 treasures, Su Yun was not in a hurry to move forward. Instead, he found a hidden place to hide, took out some recovery pills from his storage ring, and consumed them one by one to recover his profound chi. After a series of fierce battles, his fighting strength had increased again, and he now had a fighting strength of 8,300. However, what made him even more happy was the purity of the Limitless sword art. He believed that even if he used all the swords of the Mother Sword to control it, it would still be extremely easy. After recovering more or less, Su Yun came out of his hiding spot and continued on his way. After walking for 2 hours, he still had not walked out of the forest. It could be seen how big the tame Dragonland was. However, in the following period of time, Su Yun did not meet any other spirit cultivator. Even if he felt the aura of others, these auras would immediately escape and avoid fighting. It seemed that the rest of the people were very cautious and would not act rashly again. On the road thousands of miles away from Su Yun, a temporary team was cautiously flying forward. This was a team of 6 people. Some of them mainly cultivated spirit life chi, while others mainly cultivated swift wind chi, scarlet sun chi, and so on. These people were all here for the same reason. Enter the dark house. Once you enter the dark house, not only will you be able to use the unique cultivation grounds of the dark house, allowing your cultivation speed to increase by leaps and bounds, you will also be able to obtain the protection of the dark house and obtain a large number of magic treasures provided by the dark house. With such unique conditions, everyone wants to enter, but without the qualification item, everything is just empty talk. Now, only by working together can we obtain the qualification item and enter the dark house. If everyone is not united and scheming against each other, then there is only one outcome, death. I hope that everyone has some awareness. In the group, a warrior carrying a dragon-pattern broadsword turned his head and said to the 5 people behind him. The 5 of them nodded at the same time, but no one said a word. They had just entered the tame Dragonland through the Space Profound Array and were surrounded by spirit cultivators. After entering the 3-no zone, people seemed to have gone crazy and started to fight each other. In order to survive, the 6 of them joined forces and finally defeated everyone and survived. Although they had not known each other for a long time, there was still a little bit of dependence on each other. However, after a few steps, the burly man in front suddenly raised his hand, indicating for everyone to slow down. Everyone immediately stopped in their tracks, but very quickly, everyone's faces were filled with solemnity. "There's the smell of blood, is there a battle ahead?" A woman in plain white clothes said. "The battle should be over. I can't hear any sounds of fighting," the strong man said in a deep voice. He then carefully moved forward and quietly approached, as if he wanted to see what was happening ahead. The group of people slowly moved forward, but after a few steps, everyone stopped and stared blankly ahead. The road ahead was bloody, horrifying, and cruel. The whole road was covered with broken corpses of practitioners. They were scattered all over the road. There were 30 to 40 of them. In the middle of these corpses, there was a lotus-like object that emitted a snow-white light. Everyone quickly determined what it was based on the description. Qualification item. In an instant, everyone's breathing quickened. Chapter 503. The members of the 6-man team were all dumbstruck. They couldn't believe their eyes. How could this qualification item fall on the road? The color is like snow and it's shaped like a lotus flower. Each lotus petal has the unique symbol of the dark house and cannot be imitated. That's right, this must be a qualification item. This must be a qualification item, everyone. A thin man turned his head and said excitedly to the people behind him. "Don't be happy too early." The burly man carrying the broadsword said in a deep voice, "For no reason at all, a qualification item will appear on the road. Without a doubt, this must be a trap. Do you see the corpses on the ground? Aren't these corpses suspicious? If you act rashly, I'm afraid you will lose your lives. Then what should we do? Do we turn a blind eye? Go around and leave?" The thin man, Chun Hongji, said unwillingly. "Hongji, don't worry, the thing is right in front of us, it won't run away. We can first observe the surroundings, if there's nothing strange, then it won't be too late to take it. There are a total of 10 qualification items. We agreed before that everyone will work together to take down 6 and enter the dark house together. This is only the first one, why be anxious?" A woman with short hair and a fiery red dress, Gui Meishu, said. "Meishu is right, we should be careful." The burly man, Li Jin, said in a deep voice. He then took out a defensive magic treasure and activated it with his profound chi. The magic treasure released a large amount of yellow light that shone on everyone's bodies. In an instant, everyone's bodies were covered with a thick layer of earth armor. Everyone exchanged glances. The woman called Gue Meishu took out a ring-shaped artifact and distributed one to each of them. She then closed her eyes and activated the incantation. After a while, a white star formation appeared beneath her feet. 5 circles appeared around the formation, and the figures inside the circles flickered. If one paid close attention, they would discover that these figures were extremely similar to the other 5 people. This was Gue Meishu's unique magic treasure. It was linked to the other party's body. When danger occurred, it would be able to immediately pull the other party back. With this item, everyone's safety would be guaranteed. Let's go. Li Jin gave a low shout and took the lead to walk towards the qualification item. Stepping on the broken corpses and the cold blood, the 5 of them carefully approached the qualification item. Outside, Gue Meishu urged the incantation and stared at the 5 of them without blinking. Finally, Li Jin approached. The qualification item was close at hand. Inspector Li, Chen Hongji said excitedly from behind. The breathing of the others quickened as well. No one would have thought that everyone would obtain the first qualification item so quickly. Among so many people and so many experts, these people actually obtained the first one in less than a day and… Li Jin nodded and fiercely spat out a breath of air. A blazing light flashed in his eyes. After carefully observing for a while and discovering that there were no problems, he impatiently reached out to touch the artifact, grabbed it, picked it up, patter. The qualification item seemed to have grown on the ground. When he picked it up, the bottom made a crisp sound. Li Jin was stunned. In an instant, a bright light exploded from the bottom of the qualification item, illuminating all 5 of them. What's going on? Li Jin was shocked. He immediately understood that he had fallen into someone else's trap and retreated. However, he realized that the scenery around him seemed to be different from before. Just a moment ago, it was a rugged mountain road with a messy ground and terrifying corpses. But now, there was only a vast expanse of whiteness around him. The only fortunate thing was that his teammates were still here. Captain, what's going on? Where are we? It looks like we've fallen into someone else's trap. Could it be that someone used a qualification item to set a trap? Damn it! Chen Hongji said angrily. Li Jin didn't say anything. He turned his head and looked around, trying to find a way out. However, at this moment, a gloomy laughter suddenly floated down from above everyone's heads. Welcome to my world. As the sound of his voice faded, a large number of thick copper walls suddenly appeared around the 5 of them. These walls were covered with strange patterns, and each side was 100 meters tall. They let out rumbling sounds as they slowly moved over, causing people to feel immense pressure. Get out of here! Li Jin shouted. Everyone immediately rushed towards the gap in the wall that had yet to be closed. However, the wall seemed to know everyone's intentions and actually increased the speed of the encirclement in an instant. Before anyone could escape from the encirclement, they were trapped inside. Go from above! Li Jin shouted anxiously and leaped. However, at this moment, another huge cover fell from the sky, sealing off the entire wall. Li Jin and the others were completely trapped. Don't you know yet? This is actually a huge cauldron. It's an artifact that I used to refine the souls of greedy people like you. Do you see the corpses lying on the road? Very soon, you will also become one of them. That voice appeared once again, and like the final announcement, it entered the ears of Li Jin and the others. 1,000 miles away, at the edge of the forest, Su Yun stepped on the branch and carefully advanced. Along the way, he encountered quite a few corpses. Most of the corpses had been plundered clean, leaving not a single bit of property behind. It could be seen that the people who came here were not only for the qualification item, but also to kill and steal. Perhaps there were even quite a few bandits among the participants. Su Yun took every step carefully. When he sensed that there was someone in front of him, he would immediately hide and observe his movements. With the protection of Long Zhen's wristband, ordinary people would not be able to discover his existence. Slowly, Su Yun stopped in his tracks. In front of him was the direction to leave the huge forest. However, the smell of blood in the air gradually became stronger, unlike the way it had always been very light. Not only that, a bit of profound energy also came from the front. Although the profound energy was deliberately suppressed, the other party seemed to find it difficult to conceal it and still inadvertently revealed some of it. Someone. From this point of view, the other party should be injured. Su Yun focused his eyes, stepped on the branch, and quickly rushed forward. Although he had killed quite a few people along the way, he had not lost his principles. Of course, he was not too courteous. Since he dared to come here, he should be prepared to be killed or killed by others, because no matter who it was, they were here for the benefit. This was the hunting ground. If there were hunters, there would naturally be prey. He quietly moved forward. Very quickly, the source of the blood energy and profound qi was reflected in Su Yun's eyes. It was a group of about 10 people. At this moment, these people were sitting cross-legged around a large tree, their eyes closed as they adjusted their breathing. There were both men and women among them, and they were dressed differently. Most of them had injuries on their bodies, as if they had just gone through a great battle. There were bloodstains on the ground and branches, and the bloodstains extended far into the distance. It was obvious that they had escaped here. A group of 16 people? Su Yun stared at these people and felt that something was wrong. It seemed that there was a group involved in this chaotic battle. If there was a large group, then these qualification items would probably be eaten by the other party. Just as Su Yun was sizing up these people, a slightly familiar face entered his line of sight. It was a man with a huge black iron sword on his back. The man had a braid on his back, and his appearance could be considered handsome. His skin was bronze, and he was sitting at the side looking at these people. He did not suffer any injuries, and he did not even consume much profound qi, as if he had not experienced a battle. Looking at this person's face, Su Yun felt that it was extremely familiar. After thinking for a while, he patted his head and suddenly came to a realization. Wasn't this the contestant from Group A that he had met in Deer City, the eldest senior brother of the heavy sword sect, Hua Yashan? Why was he here? Su Yun was slightly suspicious. This was Bai Yang. Although Hua Yashan was not weak, he should not have a fighting strength of 7,000, right? If he was brought here by someone, why would he come to participate in this competition? Could it be that he was also here for the qualification item? Su Yun frowned. He carefully sized up Hua Yashan, and realized that the qi around his body was not considered strong, although after Deer City, his cultivation had increased by a lot, but it was still far from 7,000, and was not even at the 5th grade of Spirit Master. However, compared to this doubt, Su Yun was even more puzzled. Could it be that this group of more than 10 people were all here to enter the Dark House? Although the Dark House was good, it shouldn't be like this, right? There were only 10 qualification items. Even if he obtained all of them, he wouldn't be able to divide them evenly. Or Su Yun suddenly thought of a more likely idea. Perhaps the purpose of these people coming here was not for the qualification item, but the same as him, to kill and steal. Thinking about it this way, the appearance of Hua Yashan, who already had a sect, could be explained. Kacha. Suddenly, a sound that was so soft that it was almost invisible floated over from afar. Although the sound was so soft that ordinary people could not hear it, these powerful existences were all startled awake. Su Yun was the same. Judging from the sound, the other party seems to be deliberately hiding. Holu, bring Mao Li and the others to take a look. A man wearing a bamboo hat and his face could not be seen clearly turned his head and said to the few spirit cultivators in a deep voice. The 4 of them nodded, immediately stood up and quickly flew into the distance. Seeing this, Su Yun immediately followed the 4 of them and rushed towards the source of the sound. Although there were a large number of vicious beasts and spirit beasts in the tame Dragonland, the voice just now was definitely not from a beast. Beasts were rarely so cautious, unless they were intelligent beasts that deliberately wanted to avoid humans. Therefore, this voice must have come from a spirit cultivator. The speed of these people was not slow. The four of them ran wildly while Su Yun stepped on the branches and followed from afar. He wanted to know what the purpose of these people was. If it was really as he had guessed, perhaps he could observe and see if there was anything that interested him. Su Yun was not in a hurry to enter the center of the tame Dragonland, or rather, he did not have any plans to enter the center. What he needed to do now was to prioritize benefit. After running for about a few minutes, everyone stopped in their tracks. The source of the voice was right in front of them. Almost at the same time that everyone approached, that person also noticed the four people rushing over. He immediately retreated and vigilantly looked at the four people who suddenly rushed over. Su Yun followed from afar and looked towards the source. However, with just a glance, he was stunned. Another acquaintance. Chapter 504. She was dressed in a blue robe, with a protruding chest and back. She was extremely beautiful, her face was like a lotus, her skin was like snow, her eyes were bright and her teeth were white. She was extremely beautiful. When Su Yun first saw her, he felt that she was familiar, but she held more weight in his heart than Hua Yashan, so he remembered her more clearly. Since she was a beauty, men would always have deeper memories of beauties. First Cold Sword, Han Yu Xian. Su Yun truly never thought that he would meet Han Yu Xian here. Previously, it was Hua Yashan, now it's Han Yu Xian. Could it be that all the geniuses of New Deer City are here? But why is Han Yu Xian here? How can she be alone? Observing her spirit chi, although she was about to reach the standard to enter Beiyang, she was still lacking. Beiyang's entry standard was not just for show. If there were no other factors, she could only rely on the standard to judge, she would not be able to enter. But now, not only did she enter Beiyang, she even came to the chaotic battlefield, alone. Does she not know how to write the word death? Han Yu Xian's face was pale white. She looked as though she had consumed a lot of spirit chi. It was obvious that she had experienced a battle. Seeing the four spirit cultivators that suddenly appeared, Han Yu Xian was shocked. Her cultivation was weaker than the other party, and they had intentionally retracted their spirit chi. So when she sensed them, it was already too late. You're actually just a fourth-stage spirit master cultivator. Why did you come here alone? Huolu, who was slightly fat and bald, looked at Han Yu Xian with his bean-sized eyes, and said with a strange look, "Maybe there are people around here." Mao Li said. He signaled to the two people beside him with his eyes. The two of them understood and immediately scattered, but after a moment, the two of them returned and shook their heads at Mao Li. "Could it be that I am being paranoid?" Mao Li asked. "Everyone, what should we do now? Kill her? Or let her leave?" Another skinny man said in a low voice. "You can kill her, you cannot kill her, since killing people here will not be punished. What are you afraid of?" Mao Li said. "I can see that this girl's foundation is not bad. Her looks are exceptional. If everyone does not mind, then I will capture her and use her for dual cultivation." Just then, Huolu spoke up. Mao Li and the others glanced at Huolu and laughed in unison. "I had the same intention, but since Big Brother Hua spoke first, I'll give it to Big Brother Hua." Mao Li laughed. Hearing that, Huolu laughed out loud. He cupped his fists towards Mao Li and walked towards Han Yu Xian. The few of them did not conceal their conversation, and naturally, Han Yu Xian heard everything clearly. When she heard that they were actually using her as an object to discuss, her face immediately turned cold, but she knew that she was weaker than them, and it was not strange for her to be treated like that. In this world, the strong always dictated the fate of the weak. Seeing Huolu walk over, without saying a word, Han Yu Xian immediately pushed her spirit chi to the limit and turned to leave. But Mao Li, who was by the side, seemed to be prepared for Han Yu Xian's escape, The moment she turned and activated her chi to fly away, he immediately raised his hand and a layer of faint chi barrier sealed her escape route. Han Yu Xian's hands released an ice-cold sword that struck the chi barrier. The frigid ice spirit chi swept towards the chi barrier, instantly freezing it and shattering it. Han Yu Xian anxiously escaped, but just as she was about to break the barrier and escape, Huolu had already rushed over. He did not have the slightest bit of tenderness towards the fairer sex. He instantly released a palm that struck Han Yu Xian's back fiercely. Bang! Han Yu Xian instantly fell from the sky and landed heavily on the ground. She anxiously stood up, but when she opened her mouth, a stream of blood flowed out. The spirit chi around her body became unstable. Powerful! Although it looked like an ordinary attack, it was an attack against spirit chi. Huolu's palm was meant to injure Han Yu Xian, with the main goal of disrupting the spirit chi in her body. With her spirit chi in a mess, her chi channels would definitely be struck by the spirit chi and shatter. Not only would Han Yu Xian be injured, she would not be able to use her spirit chi to escape. It could be said to be killing two birds with one stone. Huolu was a 6th stage spirit master cultivator, so it was easy for him to deal with Han Yu Xian. Although Han Yu Xian was the #1 genius in New Deer City, but here, she was nothing. Run? Didn't you hear what I said just now? To be able to be my dual cultivation companion is your honor. Did this master allow you to run? Huolu looked at Han Yu Xian and said coldly. He was about to bring her away. Although my strength is not as good as yours, but if you want me to be your dual cultivation companion, I'm sorry, I will never agree to it. If you want to forcefully bring me away, you will have to ask my sword if it agrees or not. Han Yu Xian stood up with all her might. She wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth and spoke coldly. Hearing that, Huolu felt that he had lost all face. There was still Mao Li and the rest behind him. Wasn't Han Yu Xian's words slapping his face? How could he accept it? He immediately became enraged and spoke sinisterly. Woman, do you know what you are saying? Do you know where we are? Do you still think that I can't kill you here? If you think that way, then you are too naive. I have never thought that way, but even so, I will still say the same thing. Han Yu Xian replied. She was not a person who would easily compromise. Truly courting death. Huolu was infuriated. He once again kicked Han Yu Xian's lower abdomen. Seeing that, Han Yu Xian anxiously dodged. Huolu's cultivation was high and his speed was fast. Han Yu Xian's reaction could not compare to him. She was always slower by a beat, and her dodging movements were always awkward and stiff. But even so, she would never give in. Seeing that, Su Yun, who was in the shadows, felt even more respect for Han Yu Xian. Thinking back to when he was in New Deer City, she had left a note for him to quickly escape. Su Yun was filled with good feelings towards her. Although he could not fight 1 against 4, he could not just watch from the sidelines. Su Yun's eyes moved as he sized up the 4 of them. Out of the 4 of them, the strongest was Huolu. He was a 6th stage spirit master cultivator, the rest were 5th stage, which was also the reason why no one dared to fight with Huolu, since strength was supreme. At that moment, everyone's attention was focused on Han Yu Xian. The 3 of them had ridiculing looks on their faces, as though they wanted to see how Huolu was going to train the beautiful lady. No one noticed that Su Yun was slowly getting closer. Even if they were to pay attention, they would not be able to see through Long Zhen's wrist protector. Su Yun focused his gaze on the skinniest man among the 3 people at the back. He had just been promoted to the 5th stage, and was the weakest out of all of them, so to Su Yun, he was the easiest to kill. At that moment, he was looking at Han Yu Xian's curvaceous body with a perverted gaze, wishing that Huolu would immediately strip her and take her. Su Yun flew over. He pushed his speed to the limit, and before the sound of him tearing through the air could be heard, he had already arrived behind the short man. Clang! The tribulation fire sword was unsheathed. The scorching temperature seemed to be able to melt the surroundings. The cold aura emitted from Han Yu Xian's body immediately disappeared without a trace. Huh! The sudden explosion of heat was like a steel needle, causing everyone to be agitated. Huolu, Mao Li and the rest all turned their heads out of reflex. Their speed was extremely fast, and in the blink of an eye, they saw the source of the explosion. Everyone subconsciously retreated and took out their treasures, but a scene that caused everyone to be shocked appeared in their eyes. At that place, the short man was already a headless corpse, standing there. His head flew into the sky, blood spurting out like a fountain, and behind him, a man dressed in a black cloak was holding onto a long and blazing sword, making a slashing motion. Maybe the blood spurting out was too big, causing everyone to be dazzled. The strange scene struck everyone's brains that were not used to it yet. Huolu was startled, Mao Li was startled, and the remaining man called Shi Zhang was also startled. How can such a thing happen so suddenly? When did he get close? Why did he make a move? Other than him, is there anyone else? In that moment, Huolu immediately retreated. He no longer cared about Han Yu Xian. Shi Zhang and Mao Li anxiously moved closer to Huolu. The three of them stared at Su Yun cautiously, all of them tensed up, their eyes seemed to be glued to Su Yun, afraid that he would make a move. Sure enough, this attack had the effect of intimidating them, but if he were to kill another person, it would not be easy. Su Yun's eyes moved slightly. He raised his head slightly under the hood, and carefully sized up the remaining three people. You, who are you? Why did you attack us? Shi Zhang held onto a cold iron spear tightly. The tip of the spear pointed at Su Yun, and shouted angrily. Is there a reason to kill people here? Su Yun said indifferently. If words were useful, Su Yun would definitely not make the first move. When one was on the weaker side, the weak did not have the right to speak, just like Han Yu Xian. You're right, there is no need for a reason to kill people here. Huolu nodded his head, his soybean-sized eyes secretly scanned the surroundings, and said indifferently, But master, we do not have any qualification items on us, nor do we have any magic treasures that can be used on the stage. If you want to kill us, I'm afraid it will be a waste of effort. Furthermore, you are only one person. If you really fight with us, I'm afraid it is still unknown who will win and who will lose. If it's just one person, why would I come looking for trouble with you? Su Yun said indifferently. Could it be that there was someone nearby? Huolu's mind trembled. He secretly paid attention to his surroundings, but found that there was no movement at all. Don't try to scare us, there's no movement at all, there's no one around. Mao Li shouted. You don't believe me? Just because you can't sense them, you think they're not here? Then can you sense my existence? Su Yun asked. In fact, he was just trying to scare this group of people. It was naturally for the best if he could save Han Yu Xian without any effort. Facing 2 5th-grade Spirit Master Cultivators and 1 6th-grade Spirit Master Cultivator, if they were to fight with their lives on the line, relying on the limitless sword arts and the Imperial equipment, although there was hope of winning, it would be very difficult to keep them here. If they were to leave, it would be terrible for them to summon the dozen or so people behind them, so quickly resolving this matter was the best choice. Su Yun's words were like a blow to the head, waking Huolu and the others up. That's right, Su Yun's entire body was not leaking any qi. If they did not look at him, no one would be able to sense his existence. I'm afraid this person is not easy to deal with. He dares to look for trouble with us alone. He must have come prepared. This is bad. Mao Li said to Huolu in a low voice. Do you want to inform Big Brother and the others? Shi Zhang asked. Of course. Huolu said in a low voice. Shi Zhang, go and send the signal. I'll go install this person and try my best to buy time. All right. Shi Zhang nodded his head. Huolu took a deep breath, then asked, Master, this lowly one has misspoken, and does not dare to question Master's strength, but I wonder why Master wants to go against us. Could it be that it's purely for killing? Of course not. Su Yun secretly glanced at Shi Zhang. A strange look flashed past his eyes, and he said, I have my eyes on the woman behind you now, either you choose to hand her over, or I will kill all of you, choose for yourselves, time is limited, answer me in 10 breaths of time, or else I will begin. Chapter 505. Hearing Su Yun's words, the three of them looked at each other. Han Yuxian, who was gasping for breath, and using her sword to support herself, raised her head, and looked at the man suspiciously. Of course, her expression was as cold as ever. To her, he was no different from Huolu. All of them wanted to take over her. So that's how it is. So this lord has taken a fancy to this woman? Haha, if that's the case, then this is too easy to handle. Since Sir likes her, then just take her away. Actually, you don't have to fight with us at all. This is the battlefield, and we still have to deal with more enemies. Isn't it better to save our Xian energy? Huolu heaved a sigh of relief and smiled. Hearing that, Su Yun frowned. He secretly sized up Huolu's expression. He did not know if this guy was really planning to use this to settle the matter, or if he was saying it on purpose, but actually had other thoughts. But since he had spoken, Su Yun naturally would not be indifferent. He pretended to be very satisfied and nodded, saying indifferently, "Since you are so sensible, then there is no need to say anything more. You, come here." He pointed at Han Yuxian and said coldly, "Do you think I will go with you obediently?" Han Yuxian did not recognize him as Su Yun. She held onto her sword and said coldly, "If Han Yuxian could not recognize him, it would be troublesome." Su Yun sighed. He took the Tribulation Fire Sword and walked towards Han Yuxian. Seeing that, Huolu, Mao Li and the other two immediately retreated cautiously. They could not see through Su Yun's cultivation and naturally did not dare to make a move recklessly. Furthermore, Su Yun's target was Han Yuxian. There was no need for them to offend an unknown person for a woman. Su Yun closed in on Han Yuxian and was about to speak, but in the next second, Han Yuxian's sword pierced over. Seeing that, Su Yun immediately raised his Tribulation Fire Sword to block. When the blazing white sword collided with the cold longsword, a large number of cracks immediately appeared on the longsword. Billowing white smoke frantically overflowed, as if the cold sword was about to be melted by the white sword. Seeing that, Su Yun immediately bellowed, "Han Yuxian, don't be reckless, it's me, Su Yun." Hearing that, Han Yuxian was startled, then said, "Su Yun? You are the Su Yun who participated in the New Deer Great competition and became the champion?" He finally remembered. "It's me," Su Yun said in a low voice. "Now I will take you away. You do not resist, but do not pretend to obey me. The moment you deliberately obey, it will make them suspicious, understand? Pretend to be subdued." With that, Su Yun extended his hand out and grabbed Han Yuxian's waist. Han Yuxian was considered an intelligent person and was extremely quick-witted this time. She immediately swung her arms and legs and shouted with all her might, "Let me go! Let me go!" However, it was only for show and did not really struggle. However, in the eyes of Huolu and the other two, it was as if they were being suppressed by Su Yun. Su Yun hugged Han Yuxian and soared into the sky. Without saying a word, he rushed forward. However, right at this moment, a large number of violent auras floated over from afar. Following that, a large number of figures rushed over. "Huolu, it's Big Brother and the others!" Shi Zhang immediately exclaimed. Huolu and Mao Li immediately looked into the distance, only to see a man wearing a bamboo hat rushing over, with a large number of spirit cultivator following behind him. "Which scoundrel dares to kill my people? You want to leave? It won't be that easy." The man wearing the bamboo hat saw the headless corpse and was immediately enraged. He roared at Su Yun and was about to rush over. Seeing that, Su Yun did not dare hesitate. He immediately unleashed his speed to the limit and rushed forward. The man wearing the bamboo hat was not willing to let him go. He was not as cowardly as Huolu and the rest. He was determined to capture Su Yun. Han Yuxian immediately came out from Su Yun's arm and immediately flew away. Seeing that, Huolu and the rest realized that they were tricked by Su Yun. The two of them were obviously together, and immediately roared, "Chase! Chase them! Isn't that Han Yu Xin? That man is wearing a black cloak, could he be Su Yun?" Hua Yashan, who was following behind the man in the bamboo hat, saw the two of them escaping, and was startled. But at the moment, Su Yun had killed the people on his side, and had declared war on them, so it was impossible to negotiate. Furthermore, it was impossible to negotiate in the group. Hua Yashan did not have much authority to speak. Su Yun's speed was extremely fast, like a bolt of lightning, but Han Yu Xin, who was beside him, could not do so. She was not proficient in speed, adding that she had taken Huolu's palm. Her chi was in a mess. At the moment, she forcefully used her chi to escape, causing her injuries to worsen, and she was unable to hold on any longer. Seeing that, Su Yun immediately activated his chi and threw the tribulation fire sword out. The deathly white sword spun in the air, then quickly flew to Han Yu Xin's feet. Following that, Su Yun activated his chi and stepped in front of the sword, flying with all his might. "Damn it, he's so fast! Let's spread out and block them!" A few men bellowed. Everyone immediately scattered, wanting to surround Su Yun and force him to stop. No need. Seeing that he was unable to catch up to Su Yun, the man in the bamboo hat immediately stopped and bellowed. Everyone anxiously stopped. "Captain, are we just going to let this go? Big brother, that man killed our people, are we just going to watch him leave like that?" Everyone began to question him, their voices filled with unwillingness. The man in the bamboo hat raised his head, his wheat-colored face was gloomy. "This person's strength is unknown and his speed is extremely fast. It will be difficult for us to catch up to him, and even if we do, we will have to spend some energy to deal with him. If we spend too much energy on him, it will not be beneficial for our future actions. Compared to this person, there are more treasures worth searching for, understand? But there's no need to say any more. This tame dragon land is already filled with danger. If we blindly chase after him, we will only fall into the trap of others. Let's go." The man in the bamboo hat shouted coldly, and after he finished speaking, he ignored everyone and turned to leave. Seeing that, everyone could only give up. Sensing that no one was chasing after him, Su Yun rode on his flying sword and landed on the ground. As soon as she landed, Han Yu Xin immediately fell to the ground, clutching her chest as she gasped for breath. Her expression was extremely ugly, her lips were dry, and her eyes were dim. Previously, she had forcefully used her chi to escape, causing many of the chi meridians in her body to rupture. Seeing that, Su Yun took out a few pills and fed them to her. He also urged some chi into her body, and only then did Han Yu Xin feel better. "Thank you, Su Yun. It's all thanks to you this time. Otherwise, I would have died from humiliation," Han Yu Xin said weakly. "There's no need to thank me. After all, you took care of me in Deer City." Su Yun smiled slightly. "Is there?" Han Yu Xin did not understand, but seeing the sincere smile on his face, she did not ask any further. "Han Yu Xin, although your strength is not bad, this place is too dangerous for you. Why are you here?" Su Yun asked. "Of course it's to enter the Dark House." "Enter the Dark House? You came here alone to snatch the qualification item? Although the Dark House is good, is it worth it for you to exchange your life for it?" With her cultivation, fighting for the qualifications to enter the Dark House was simply courting death. "Although I am a little arrogant, I also know how much I am worth. This time, I did not come here alone, but with others. It's just that my companions have already died on the way, and only I was lucky enough to escape. No wonder you're alone. But, don't you have a sect? Why do you still want to enter the Dark House?" Su Yun asked in confusion. After he said that, Han Yu Xin sighed softly and shook her head. "Sect? It is precisely because the sect is tyrannical that I want to enter the Dark House." Hearing that, Su Yun said, "Could it be that something happened?" "It's a long story." Han Yu Xian sighed slightly and told him what happened after they parted ways in Deer City. It turned out that after Han Yu Xian rejected Lu Yiwen, she was worried that Lu Yiwen would take revenge, so she immediately rushed back to the sect, hoping to rely on the sect's power to protect herself, so that Lu Yiwen would not be able to do anything to her. However, when the sect found out about this, they immediately expelled Han Yu Xian. The reason was that the Flowing Night family was too powerful, and they could not fight against them. When Han Yu Xian heard this news, her heart broke. She was naturally unwilling, and her master did not agree with the sect leader's idea, so this matter was delayed. However, not long after, Han Yu Xian received another piece of news, claiming that the sect would send her to the Flowing Night family in a few days to quell Lu Yiwen's anger, hoping that the Flowing Night family would not take revenge on the sect. After hearing this news, Han Yu Xian did not make things difficult for her master anymore. She immediately secretly left the sect and wandered around. However, not long after she left the sect, the news that shocked the world spread. The Huairou aristocratic family had officially annexed the Flowing Night family. The people of the Flowing Night family were either dead or had fled, and Lu Yiwen's whereabouts were unknown. With the destruction of the Flowing Night family, everything naturally came to an end, but Han Yu Xian no longer had any plans to return to the sect. This time, she had met a Flowing Night family, and the sect was already so flustered, without any intention of protecting her. If she met a stronger force next time, what would happen to the sect? Thus, seeking a strong force to rely on became Han Yu Xian's most urgent hope. Only with a strong backing could she provide an absolutely safe cultivation environment for the spirit cultivator. Coincidentally, the Dark House was recruiting people. Although Han Yu Xian was not from Beiyang, she had heard of the Dark House's name. She had just experienced such a thing in the sect and urgently hoped to have an even stronger force to rely on, so she decided to enter the Dark House. For this, she had spent a large amount of profound coins that she had accumulated over many years to enter Beiyang and form a team of rogue cultivators to enter the Tame Dragon land together to snatch the qualification item. Han Yu Xian had calculated everything. In the first month of entering the land, she was prepared to hide with her teammates for a month and wait for the competition to reach its climax. If the opponent was too strong, she would give up. If she had the strength to fight with the opponent, she would give it her all. However, to her disappointment, not long after entering the Tame Dragon land, all of her teammates died tragically. As such, all of Han Yu Xian's thoughts turned into bubbles. What a twist! After Su Yun heard all of this, he could not help but sigh. It can only be said that fate makes a fool out of people. Han Yu Xian said indifferently. What do you plan to do next? Leave the Tame Dragon land and take it one step at a time. You're not going to continue fighting for the qualification item. Previously, I was hoping to rely on my teammates to get one, but now it seems that I was too naive. I'm afraid that this qualification item is not something that someone like me can obtain. Han Yu Xian stood up and bowed to Su Yun seriously. Su Yun, Han Yu Xian owes you a favor. If I have a life in the future, I will definitely repay you. You're too polite. Su Yun nodded and said, but this place is still too dangerous. Since you want to leave, I'll send you off. Aren't you leaving? Han Yu Xian asked. Of course not. You want to snatch the qualification item? Not at all. Then what are you going to do? Are you alone or do you have a team? Su Yun, what's your cultivation level now? Han Yu Xian could not help but ask. She realized that after they parted ways in Deer City, the person in front of her seemed to have been reborn. Chapter 506. Han Yu Xian's barrage of questions caused Su Yun to be unable to react, but after a while, he still replied honestly. Of course, I'm just one person. My current cultivation is at the 6th grade of Spirit Master. What? Han Yu Xian was petrified. She was dumbstruck as she stared at Su Yun. 6th grade of Spirit Master? How long had it been? Su Yun had advanced to such a level? How was that possible? Although you were strong before, you were definitely not at the 6th grade of Spirit Master. I'll take it that you were at the 5th grade of Spirit Master before. How long has it been, and you've already advanced? If ordinary people don't spend decades and don't have any fortuitous encounters, it's impossible for them to advance. How can you be so fast? Han Yu Xian regained her senses and said in a daze. Yu Xian, have you never heard of something called cultivation coins in this world? Su Yun said indifferently. As long as you have enough cultivation coins, isn't it easy to raise your cultivation? Hearing that, Han Yu Xian was startled for a moment, then suddenly realized something. She seemed to have thought of something, nodded her head and said, I forgot, I heard that you have a good relationship with the young miss of the Huiro family, so naturally you don't lack cultivation coins. Su Yun was speechless. Did Han Yu Xian think that he was a gigolo who lived off a woman? But he was not in the mood to explain. If you want to leave this place, I'll send you out. Speaking of which, are you preparing to leave Beiyang? No, it wasn't easy for me to enter Beiyang, so I naturally have to use the resources here to quickly raise my fighting strength to 7,000. As for the sect, if I can't enter the Dark House, then I'll think of a way to enter another sect. Actually, this is just a choice. I might not even join a sect. What I'm doing now is just to find a safe place to cultivate. A safe place to cultivate was the foundation of the spirit cultivator. Only by cultivating in a safe place could they think of ways to improve their cultivation conditions. I hope you have a good future. Su Yun nodded, expressing his understanding. Thank you. Han Yu Xian nodded her head lightly, the corner of her mouth raised slightly, revealing a rare smile. Su Yun's current location was not far from the edge of the tame Dragonland. Soon, the two of them saw an open river. After crossing this river, you will be out of the battlefield. There will be members of the Dark House at the edge. If you show them that you are a participant, they will have a special array formation to send you back to Yen Xian City. Su Yun said. And Han Yu Xian nodded her head. She turned and bowed to Su Yun again and said, Su Yun, thank you. If there is a chance in the future, I will definitely repay you. Don't worry about it. We'll talk about it in the future. Su Yun laughed. Han Yu Xian did not speak anymore, but carefully looked at Su Yun's face, as though she wanted to engrave his face in her heart. She then turned and leaped, flying across the river. Seeing that Han Yu Xian had disappeared to the other side of the river, Su Yun calmed down. With that, he no longer owed Han Yu Xian anything. He turned around and continued to walk deeper into the tame Dragonland. Although it was said to be at the edge of the tame Dragonland, it was no longer part of the tame Dragonland. It could only be said to be the river around the land. Su Yun walked up the river, searching for his target. He did not have much wealth, less than 3 million profound coins, which was far from enough. He was still far from his plan. After walking for an hour, he could not see a single person. There was not even a single corpse or blood on the ground. Could this be a no-man's land? That's right, after entering this battlefield, everyone would probably want to head towards the center. Who would linger at the edge? Su Yun thought. Roar. At this moment, a low roar suddenly came from the depths of the rocks in front of him. Su Yun's footsteps paused and he stopped. Fierce beast? Judging from the sound, could it be that he had trespassed into its territory? Did he cause it to be displeased? Su Yun thought for a moment, then retreated. In this kind of place, he was not willing to waste his precious energy on fierce beasts. If he encountered other spirit cultivator, he would not have enough energy and profound strength, which would be terrible. It was just that, before Su Yun could take a few steps back, the fierce beast rushed over. It was an existence that was shaped like a fierce tiger and as big as a small house. Its eyes were like copper bells, its pupils were dark red, and there was a huge eye on its forehead. The bones on its back protruded, and its limbs were well developed. It was extremely majestic. It opened its bloody mouth and directly swallowed Su Yun. The sharp edge between its fangs was like a steel needle stabbing into Su Yun's flesh. At this moment, Su Yun understood that the other party was not angry because he had trespassed into its territory. The reason why it roared was very simple. It was hungry. Clang! A circle of pale white qi enveloped Su Yun's body. When the ferocious tiger-like beast bit on the qi barrier, it was as if it was biting a boulder. Its teeth could not penetrate even an inch as it rubbed against the qi barrier, producing a creak sound. Su Yun looked at the bloody mouth in front of his head and spat out a mouthful of turbid air. Suddenly, he opened his eyes, pulled out the tribulation fire sword, and fiercely threw it into its mouth. Whiz! The tribulation fire sword was like a flaming arrow that flew out. The moment the qi cover was removed, it rushed into the mouth of the fierce beast and stabbed it back. Su Yun immediately activated the technique and poured profound qi into the tribulation fire sword, activating all the flame power within the tribulation fire sword. In an instant, the tribulation fire sword spewed out a deathly white flame, crazily burning the internal organs of the fierce beast. Roar! The vicious beast immediately rolled around on the ground, roaring hysterically. After an unknown amount of time, its skin began to slowly burn, and smoke began to billow out of its eyes and nose. Its huge body began to stop struggling, and finally, it lay on the ground, motionless. After about the time it took for a stick of incense to burn, a mass of pale white flames sprang out from its body, directly burning its body. A fierce beast that was only at the 5th grade of Spirit Master. Su Yun recalled the tribulation fire sword and checked on the fierce beast. He was not interested in taking its inner core and continued forward. The Longjin's wristband had both advantages and disadvantages. The fierce beasts did not know his cultivation level, and even Tom, Dick, and Harry dared to provoke him. Along the way, if he did not deliberately conceal himself, he would be constantly troubled by these fierce beasts. Just as Su Yun passed by the fierce beast's nest that had been burned to death and was about to head into the tame Dragonland, a pitch-black tombstone suddenly appeared in his line of sight. Su Yun frowned, he looked around, and realized that the surrounding rocks were arranged in an orderly manner, and there were some wooden sticks in the middle of the rocks, and behind the tombstone there was a large pile of collapsed and broken wood, and vaguely, these pieces of wood were covered with some furniture that could be seen. Su Yun quickly walked over and checked the wood and the furniture inside. He discovered that these things had all been blessed by profound qi. Had someone lived here before? He shifted his gaze to the pitch-black tombstone behind him, only to see that there were rows of blood-red words on it. However, with just a glance at the words, Su Yun felt an indescribable power rushing out from the words and directly into his body. He was shocked and quickly averted his eyes, not daring to look straight at it. These words actually had such power? Whose tomb was this? Su Yun thought in surprise. Suddenly, he remembered the ferocious tiger-like beast from before. Weren't its 3 eyes pitch-red in color? Could it be that this fierce beast was attracted by the words on the tombstone? Su Yun thought to himself. After a moment, he shifted his gaze again and looked at the words. True Devil Realm, Devil Sect's Holy Guardian Een Mo's Burial Ground. Su Yun endured this strange power and read out the words on it one by one. True Devil Realm? Devil Sect? Could it be that his guess back then was correct? There was indeed a Devil Sect in this true Devil Realm? This was too much of a coincidence. In this tame Dragonland, he actually found a person from the Devil Sect. Furthermore, looking at the words on it, the person who was buried was actually the Devil Sect's holy guardian. This was an incredible level, and the other party's strength must have exceeded the Spirit Master level. However, the people of the Devil Sect did not erect tombstones after they died. Su Yun had entered the Devil Sect before. After the people of the Devil Sect died, they only hoped that their bodies and souls would fuse into the world. They would then use the method of cremation to end their lives, hoping that they would be on par with the world. This tombstone was most likely set up by someone else for Enmo. But how could these words release such a dense power? Moreover, it could be directly injected into the body through the eyes. Wouldn't that allow one's cultivation to continuously increase? Su Yun had an exceptional understanding of the devil sect's methods, and this kind of advantage was most likely not something he could take. He remembered that the devil sect had a method that was similar to this, which was to turn oneself into a skeleton and paralyze the opponent. When the opponent looked directly at the skeleton, all of his power would frantically pour into the opponent's body, and the opponent would be immersed in the pleasure of the crazy increase in power, causing him to lose himself and further allow himself to invade the opponent's body to achieve the goal of destroying the opponent. If an ordinary person were to look directly at these words, they would definitely be intoxicated by the power that overflowed from these words, but Su Yun did not dare. He took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and bowed 3 times towards the tombstone. After all, this was a senior. He was actually quite grateful to the devil sect. After all, the people of the devil sect had taught him a lot, although he no longer wanted to return to the devil sect. So. At this moment, 3 sounds of something tearing through the air came from behind. Following that, a mournful cry rippled over. Where did this wild brat come from? He actually came here. Humph, from the looks of it, you must have discovered the secret of this place. Since that's the case, then leave your life behind. Su Yun's eyes suddenly opened and his eyes turned red. He immediately turned around, pulled out the tribulation fire sword, and waved it in the air. The surging white flame energy swept out like a wave, directly scattering the 3 incoming profound energy. A thin and weak man with a sharp mouth and monkey cheeks rushed over. His eyes were also scarlet red, but different from Su Yun's. His eyes were red, as though it was caused by too much blood. At the moment, the man's hair stood on end, his face was sinister and angry. He stared fiercely at Su Yun, as though he had been provoked by something. Seeing this person's appearance, Su Yun could tell that this person must have absorbed a lot of the tombstone's power. Chapter 507. Demons were different from evil. In his previous life, Su Yun had entered the devil sect, and in this life, he had been to the evil realm. He was very clear of the difference between the two. Demons were born from the obsession in their hearts. If the obsession was not extinguished, the demonic nature would exist forever. In order to achieve their goals, they were willing to destroy the common people. This was something that neither the evil nor the spirit demons could do. It was obvious that the obsession in this person's heart had been aroused by the magic overflowing from the tombstone. He began to desire power and began to hope that he could have great power to realize his thoughts. Su Yun's existence seemed to have obstructed his ideals. He subconsciously thought that Su Yun was also absorbing this power, and in his opinion, this power only belonged to him. No one else could touch it. It was like a reverse scale. Touching it would cause him to be angry. Su Yun secretly observed his aura and found that it was very thick, but also very unstable. He should be at the peak of the 6th grade of Spirit Master and was about to step into the 7th grade, but what helped him reach this cultivation level seemed to be the devil power that overflowed from the tombstone. This devil power could not be perfectly absorbed by him, so it was difficult to stabilize. Those with unstable power would naturally have a lot of unstable factors. It would not be difficult to defeat him. The spirit cultivator with red eyes and a sharp mouth let out a furious roar. Following that, his entire body pounced forward like a fierce tiger. His body was filled with a large number of brown lines. The surging profound chi surged out like a river. With his body as the prototype, it transformed into a gigantic chi tiger, directly pouncing towards Su Yun's head to bite. Full of vigor, Su Yun's expression was cold. He naturally did not dare to underestimate his opponent in the slightest. He held onto the Imperial Equipment flag with one hand, activating the 7th tier Imperial Equipment, The chi cover formed and enveloped his body. The evil tiger smashed into the chi cover, unable to advance even half a step. Then, Su Yun waved his hand in the air. The white tribulation fire sword was like a white crescent moon, slashing the evil tiger into pieces and igniting its profound chi. The monkey-faced spirit cultivator was blasted to the ground. 100 blazing fire swords rushed out of the sword sheath, as if 100 small suns had appeared in the world, instantly raising the temperature of the surroundings by a few thousand degrees. The surroundings began to burn with raging flames, turning into a sea of fire. Waves of heat surged in the air, making the entire place look like a flaming hell. Su Yun quickly waved his hand, and 9 flying swords flew out of the 100 swords and landed on his body, and started to circle around him. Burning Sky Sword Formation. The first sword. Phoenix dances in the skies. Su Yun bellowed. A flying sword rushed out of the sword formation, transforming into a fire phoenix, swooping towards the spirit cultivator. The scorching heat wave was unstoppable, as if it could burn everything. The spirit cultivator's eyes were blood-red, his face was distorted. He roared with all his might, and took out 3 defensive magic treasure in a row. These magic weapons form shields, armors, and walls in front of him, but they are all smashed by the Fire Phoenix. The Fire Phoenix was invincible. Ah! The monkey-like spirit cultivator let out an unwilling roar. In the blink of an eye, he was engulfed by the Fire Phoenix. His entire body was surrounded by flames. The temperature of the fire was unknown, corroding his entire body. In the sea of fire, a person was struggling crazily. Su Yun formed a seal with one hand, and continued to pour profound chi into the Tribulation Fire Sword. The Tribulation Fire Sword became stronger and stronger, and the temperature of its subordinate sword also became higher and higher. Slowly, the spirit cultivator who was engulfed by the flames stopped struggling and fell to the ground, no longer moving. Dead. If his aura was unstable, he might not even be able to display his full strength. Su Yun stopped his hand seals and put the flying sword back into its scabbard. The surrounding flames were still burning, but the flames on the spirit cultivator's body were quickly extinguished. The existence of a spirit master's body was extremely strong, and his body was filled with profound energy. If he did not continue to strengthen the flames, it would quickly be extinguished. At this moment, this person's entire body was charred black. Some parts of his body were burnt to a bloody mess. His facial features had all melted and fused together. His appearance was so terrifying that it made one's scalp go numb. Su Yun was not a soft-hearted person. This person was an enemy and not a friend, so there was no need for him to be polite. He carried the Tribulation Fire Sword and walked towards that person. As he approached the corpse, Su Yun immediately raised his sword and chopped down at the head. Final stab. This was something that had to be done. In this strange and bizarre ultimate martial world, no matter which spirit cultivator it was, they would not be able to accurately determine whether the enemy was truly dead or not. Only by beheading the enemy would they be able to calm down. It was just that. The moment the Tribulation Fire Sword slashed down, the spirit cultivator's body suddenly split open like a watermelon. Following that, a pitch-black aura rushed out from the cracks in his body and shot straight into the sky. Terrifying devil chi spread out in all directions. Su Yun was caught off guard and was directly blasted away by the devil chi. He retreated a few steps, tightly gripping onto the Tribulation Fire Sword, and focused his gaze. The devil chi in the sky quickly condensed and formed a 3-meter-tall person. This person's entire body was pitch black, his limbs were thick, and there was a horn on his head. His facial features were actually blood-red, making him look extremely cautious. This is demonization? Su Yun was slightly startled, and instantly understood what was going on. After the other party died, his soul was unable to escape the restraints of the devil chi in his body and was actually absorbed by the devil chi. Then, with the devil chi as his body and his soul as his essence, he underwent demonization and became a true devil cultivator. Demonization? Have I been demonized? The existence in the form of a demon was also surprised. He raised his hands and looked at them. After being stunned for a moment, a burst of mournful laughter rang out. Ha 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 ha, I never thought that I would actually transform into a demon. I heard that the body of a devil cultivator is several times stronger than a human's. I never thought that I would obtain such luck and actually transform into a demon. Ha 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 ha, good. Good. Ha 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 ha. He laughed like a madman, and the expression on his face was extremely crazy. Su Yun frowned and said indifferently, Demonification is not a good thing, especially your kind of demonification. Your demonification is decided by the magic power in your body. Your current thoughts are only temporary, because your 3 souls and 7 spirits are very weak. Your strength is not enough to contend against the magic power in your body. They are the dominant power. They will slowly familiarize themselves with your 3 souls and 7 spirits, slowly analyze, and finally transform your 3 souls and 7 spirits, forming a brand new devil soul and devil soul. At that time, you will no longer be you, but a brand new devil cultivator, and you will completely die. Demonization was a common thing in the books of the devil sect. Whether it was the devil realm or the true devil realm, there were records of demonization. Although it was rare, it was recorded every time, especially when a human became a demon. In fact, when Su Yun first joined the devil sect, he could use the devil power to transform his body into a devil cultivator, but he knew that the consequences of doing so were extremely serious, so he thought of other methods. Although the risk of entering the devil sect with demon blood was extremely high, and there was a high chance of failure and death, it was far better than this. This kind of demonization would turn into a new devil cultivator over time, and he would also be completely destroyed. It was definitely not a good thing, and it was even more detrimental to the revenge that he had hoped for. However, what made Su Yun hold a grudge was that the nameless devil cultivator blood that he had used back then. Which devil cultivator did it belong to? He felt that his devil blood was extremely different from that of an ordinary devil cultivator. It was as if the influence of the blood was still there after his rebirth. Why was that? I have already become a demon, and will become an eternal existence. How can I die? On the other hand, I feel that you will die very soon. If you are willing to kneel down and kowtow to me, and submit to me, maybe I won't kill you so quickly. The demonized man laughed sinisterly, his curved eyes filled with ridicule and ridicule. Su Yun frowned. This person's obsession was too strong, and he was too arrogant. Saying anything to him now was useless. Only by completely defeating him would he be the best choice for survival. He took a deep breath and kept the tribulation fire sword. The opponent was originally at the peak of the 6th grade of Spirit Master, and after the demonization, he would definitely be a 7th grade existence. Moreover, the power of the demonization would completely stabilize, and if he did not use his full strength, he would only be killed by the opponent. After putting away the tribulation fire sword, the death sword was slowly pulled out. On the pitch-black sword, the bright red word death was revealed from the scabbard. In an instant, a terrifying baleful aura that could destroy the heavens and earth drifted out. It was like the roar of an ancient, vicious beast. It was like the roar of a giant. It was like the roar of a dragon in the sky. In the darkness, a demonic and arrogant concept filled the air. Since ancient times, evil and demons had always existed side by side. Evil and demons were the same path, but they were also different paths. The death sword that was unsheathed today seemed to be even more restless than usual. This was exactly what Su Yun had hoped for. The long sword was slanted to the ground as it looked up at the sky. Battle intent erupted. You actually dare to challenge me, good. Very good. Since you're in such a hurry to die, I'll grant your wish. The demonized man's face contorted as he roared and smashed down. His body was completely vaporized, forming a gigantic black mountain that descended from the sky. Profound energy was infused into the black mountain, and its strength was as great as 10,000 kilograms. Su Yun stared at the black mountain, his eyes focused, condensing into a point, suddenly thrusting the death sword in his hand into the air, imbuing it with profound energy. The death sword's edge was wrapped by a dense evil spirit chi. At the same time, the sprite's shadow between Su Yun's fingers was activated, the heart-cleaving sword art was activated, the death sword exploded with a sharp aura that could break through everything. Dong! The black mountain fiercely smashed onto the ground, causing the entire ground to tremble crazily, as if a giant was shaking the entire continent. Other than the tombstone, everything around it was crushed into powder, and the ground sank a few inches. The black mountain landed on the ground. After a few seconds of silence, crack! The sound of stone breaking rang out, and a figure rushed out from the top of the black mountain. It was Su Yun. He raised the death sword and flew into the air, and a huge hole had appeared in the center of the black mountain. Ah! He Shan quickly transformed into his devil cultivator form and rushed towards Su Yun again. He waved both of his hands and two blood-red spears appeared in his hands. When he struck Su Yun, the spear tip turned into an angry dragon and bit towards Su Yun. But Su Yun moved at a high speed like a phantom. The pitch-black death sword continued to flash in front of the devil cultivator, and in less than a breath of time, thousands of death sword images surrounded the devil cultivator. Chi! 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 An ear-piercing sound rang out along with the appearance of the sword images. The death sword quickly shuttled back and forth between the demonic chi cultivators. With every slash, it would draw out a lot of demonic chi from the demonic chi cultivators. It was difficult for the devil cultivator to keep up with Su Yun's speed, so he could only continue to retreat. However, as the number of times his body was hit by the sword increased, he slowly realized how terrifying the damage the sword was doing to him. "It's actually devouring my demonic aura?" The demonic being exclaimed in shock. At this moment, he was even smaller than before. Chapter 508. Su Yun only knew that the death sword only swallowed the evil chi, but did not want to swallow the devil chi as well. However, he did not feel any changes in the death sword due to devouring the devil chi. Instead, it only passed through the sword's body and was expelled out of the sword, unlike the evil chi that devoured it for its own use. The death sword had spirituality, and was different from the other swords. Its spirituality was far greater than the other swords, to the point where Su Yun would not be able to control it if he was not careful. And now it was biting the devil chi, and was attacking the opponent's demonized body. "I didn't expect you to have such ability." Su Yun stared at the death sword, muttered to himself, then took a deep breath, and rushed towards the devil cultivator again. Howl! The devil cultivator suddenly released waves of howling sounds. Following that, a large amount of fist-sized devil chi rushed out of his body, all of them turned into devil mouths, biting towards Su Yun. There were more than 1,000 of them. Su Yun dodged left and right, avoiding the devil mouths. He approached the devil cultivator and slashed. The devil cultivator's chest was hit again, and he was sent flying. Although he was already a demonized body, there was a huge difference between a demonic body and a physical body. At least the demonic body could no longer use many profound skills from when he was alive, and the power he used now was only the instinctive power bestowed by the demonic body. However, even though the opponent had been hit several times, he still acted as if nothing had happened. His chi did not decrease at all. From the looks of it, the strength of the demonic body was indeed terrifying. Such a fast speed! "Human, I want to devour you!" Just then, the devil cultivator opened his mouth. His voice was no longer as clear as before, but now there was a demonic sound overlapping. This was the result of his soul being gradually corroded by the devil power. Devour me? Can you? Su Yun snorted. He pushed his speed to the limit, and like a whirlwind, he circled around the devil cultivator, the death sword in his hand crazily slashed at his body. A large number of sword images filled the air, slashing one after another. Chi! Chi! The death sword crazily tore, like a bloody mouth. Ah! The devil cultivator roared again, his body changing again. A large number of sinister devil hands appeared from all directions, grabbing in all directions. There were no blind spots, there was nowhere to escape. Su Yun's speed was extremely fast, it was difficult to avoid, and was directly grabbed by the devil hand on his left leg and left arm. Su Yun immediately struggled, but the power of this demonic hand was extremely great. It covered all the power of a 7th-grade spirit master cultivator. It was not something that a 6th-grade spirit master cultivator like him could break free from. Let's see if I can devour you. Devil cultivator's head turned 180 degrees, twisted in front of Su Yun, and then opened his mouth wide. The mouth was like a rubber band, getting longer and longer, getting bigger and bigger. Waves of devil chi spiraled inside the mouth, as though many terrifying faces were wailing at Su Yun. After that, the big mouth covered Su Yun's head, wanting to swallow Su Yun's entire head. Puchi! Just at this moment, the death sword suddenly moved and pierced straight into the mouth. The devil cultivator was startled. He wanted to move forward and swallow Su Yun along with the sword, but at that moment, he realized that no matter how much strength he used, he could not move forward at all. What was going on? Devil cultivator's head continued to tremble, as though he was fighting with Su Yun, but no matter how hysterical he was, it was useless. At this time, Su Yun slowly raised his head. What entered the eyes of the devil cultivator was a pair of blood-red eyes that were filled with demonic nature. At this moment, Su Yun's face was sinister. His face was filled with killing intent and coldness. He was only a few centimeters away from Devil Cultivator's face, and the two of them could even smell the killing intent coming from each other's body. An ice-cold, ruthless, fierce, and cruel killing intent. It was exactly the same. You can't do it, Su Yun said with a sinister look, then suddenly waved his arm. The death sword instantly slashed horizontally, chopping off half of Devil Cultivator's head. Devil Cultivator's body trembled, and the devil hand that was grabbing onto Su Yun loosened. However, Su Yun did not choose to escape at this time. Instead, he grabbed Devil Cultivator's neck and lifted him up. He held the death sword upside down and continued to stab towards his broken head. Puchi! Devil Cultivator's head was pierced again. Su Yun took the opportunity and slashed down with the death sword. The death sword's body was like a swimming fish. After piercing through Devil Cultivator's body, it swam crazily inside his body. If it was a mortal body, it would have been cut into pieces by the death sword, but Devil Cultivator's body was extremely terrifying. Even if it was cut open, it would quickly heal. However, Su Yun did not expect the death sword to be able to cut him into pieces. What he wanted was for the death sword to completely remove the chi on Devil Cultivator's body, and completely destroy him. Puff! Just then, two hands that had turned into black blades suddenly pierced through Su Yun's abdomen. It was the Devil Cultivator's hand. At such a close distance, how could he not injure Su Yun? However, a shocking scene appeared. After Su Yun took the attack, he did not have any reaction, and even his body did not make any conditional reflexes, as if the attack was not on his body. He continued to slash at Devil Cultivator with sword after sword, as if he would not stop until he was dead. There was no order, no advance or retreat. At this moment, it was as if he was fighting to the death, and would not rest until he was dead. This is demonic nature? Are you also a Devil Cultivator? Finally, the Devil Cultivator sensed that something was wrong with Su Yun. From those blood-red eyes, he could see a hysterical madness and an unparalleled obsession. Although this devil power was extremely weak compared to his own body, the devil nature of the devil power was planted deep within his body and would never be extinguished. Ah! Su Yun suddenly grabbed the devil cultivator's neck and frantically raised it up. Following that, the death sword slashed horizontally, slashing towards the devil cultivator's neck. The pitch-black death sword released a mournful sword cry. The devil cultivator was extremely anxious. The only thought left in his body made him gather all the strength in his body at his neck, blocking the incoming death sword. Puff! When the sword cut into his neck, the devil chi immediately became restless, but following the rapid movement of the devil cultivator's chi, the defense at his neck instantly increased by more than 10 times, and the extremely sharp death sword could only cut in less than half an inch, and was unable to go any further. Human, although I can't see what your cultivation is, I know that your cultivation is inferior to mine. It is impossible for you to defeat me. Obediently submit, obediently let me devour you. The devil cultivator roared, both of his hands crazily attacking Su Yun's body, fist after fist, blade after blade. Su Yun's chest was in a mess, blood flowed out. His skin, flesh and bones were all exposed. If an ordinary profound cultivator were to receive such an attack, they would definitely be severely injured, but the current Su Yun was still as if nothing had happened. He stared at the devil cultivator's neck, his left hand grabbing it, his right hand holding onto the death sword. He continued to push it in, with an expression that he would not give up until he achieved his goal. The death sword trembled crazily. The blade of the sword slowly curled up, and the wound slowly grew bigger. The devil cultivator sensed that something was wrong, and immediately increased his attacks on Su Yun. He shattered his opponent's bones, and shattered his opponent's chi meridian and internal organs, but Su Yun still had a breath of life left, and was still unwilling to give up. Despicable people! The devil cultivator was finally impatient. He raised his hands and took out the blood-red dual spear, then merged the two spears together, forming an even more ferocious and terrifying red spear, and directly pierced towards Su Yun's head. The head was always a spirit cultivator's vital point. Whether it was a demon, a human, or an evil person, the head could not be heavily injured, or else it would die. Su Yun was attacking the opponent's head, and the opponent was also attacking Su Yun's head. This was an attack that would decide the victor. Su Yun's eyes flickered, facing the incoming spear. He did not have the slightest bit of fear, but on the other hand, because the devil cultivator wanted to condense the spear, the devil chi defense around his neck loosened. Chance. Crash. The death sword took advantage of the situation. Like a broken bamboo, it directly slashed through the gap, instantly piercing through his neck. Slash. With his neck broken, the devil chi shot up into the sky like a fountain. Su Yun immediately grabbed the devil cultivator's head and held it in his hand. With his head chopped off, the power in his body disappeared. Before the spear could even reach him, it had already disappeared. A wail exploded. The head swayed on Su Yun's head for a moment, and then became silent. The headless devil cultivator's body directly fell from the sky, heavily smashing onto the ground, and began to gradually vaporize. Woo! The devil chi dispersed, and a whimpering sound came from the darkness. Su Yun followed the sound and found the person's soul. He immediately pulled out the tribulation fire and chopped at it. The deathly white flames devoured the soul and completely burned it. The flames gradually disappeared, and the devil chi dissipated with the wind. An existence of the 7th grade of Spirit Master had fallen just like that. Su Yun fell from the sky and kept the death sword and the tribulation fire sword. He stood on the spot for a while, and then heavily fell to the ground. At this moment, he had used up an unknown amount of profound energy and was close to the point of exhaustion. After waiting for about half an incense stick of time, he finally recovered. He hurriedly stood up, took out a pill and swallowed it, circulating his energy to recover from his injuries, but his body was filled with evil spirit chi, and for some reason, using the monarch occult force to convert into spirit life chi was extremely difficult. He took a few deep breaths, knowing that it was because his demonic nature had been aroused. He did not dare to be too hasty, and could only try his best to calm his mind and slowly circulate his energy. After half a day, he finally felt better, but the wounds on his body did not recover so quickly. He turned his head and looked at the tombstone. His eyes couldn't help but tense up. In fact, when he was fighting with the devil cultivator just now, the demonic nature in Su Yun's body was not intentionally activated, but was attracted by the power seeping out from the tombstone. Although Su Yun did not absorb much of the tombstone's power, no matter what, he was still contaminated with some, and inadvertently awakened the demonic nature that had settled down. What exactly is demonic nature? What exactly is a demon? When the demonic nature was aroused, when fighting with the devil cultivator, he did not know pain, forgot about life and death, and only wanted to destroy the opponent. Now that the opponent is dead, everything has returned to normal. He knows pain, he is afraid of death, how strange. Su Yun touched the wound on his chest and muttered. But no one could answer his doubts. Getting rid of this person could be considered a lucky thing. After all, the other party's cultivation was higher than his. With the death of this person, the fighting strength on the certificate of qualifications also soared by a few hundred. However, Su Yun's current requirement for fighting strength was not that great. However, what made people feel lucky was that when fighting with the devil cultivator, there was such a huge commotion, but it did not attract other spirit cultivators. It seemed that this place was indeed very remote. Su Yun took a deep breath, stood up, and walked towards the tombstone. This tombstone was so mystical, it seemed that the person who buried the bones was definitely an existence that could reach the heavens. He still did not dare to look directly at the words on the tombstone. Although this power could allow him to quickly advance, he did not want to be occupied by this power. After sweeping his gaze around, he left. Such a strange tombstone, it was better to stay far away from it. Just as Su Yun was about to leave, he was surprised to find that the back of the tombstone had actually cracked open. The cracks were extremely large, and waves of cold wind gushed out. Could it be that there was another world inside? Su Yun thought in surprise. Chapter 509. There were no cracks before, but now there were cracks. Could it be that it was caused by the fight with that person? If that was the case, didn't that mean that the tombstone could be destroyed? Su Yun thought for a moment, then suddenly thought of something. He immediately stood up, took half a step back, pulled out the tribulation fire sword, imbued it with profound chi, and then slashed at the tombstone. Bang! When the tribulation fire sword struck the tombstone, it immediately produced a violent explosion. The shock wave spread out and the terrifying sound spread far and wide. A clear scarlet sword mark appeared on the tombstone like magma. However, the tombstone did not shatter. From this, it could be seen that the tombstone's material was extremely astonishing. It was impossible to destroy it in one or two strikes. Su Yun took a deep breath, raised the tribulation fire sword, and activated it more than 10 times. The sounds of explosions rang out incessantly, and more than half of the profound chi that Su Yun had just accumulated was used up. He was panting heavily, and his face was covered in sweat. However, the tombstone was no longer intact. A large number of cracks had already appeared on its surface, and even more magical and powerful devil chi began to seep out from the cracks. Unlike the devil chi that overflowed from the blood-red words, this devil chi was just pure devil chi, as if it had been inadvertently emitted from somewhere. Su Yun swallowed a pill and recovered some of his strength. He then stood up and continued to slash at the tombstone. This continued for a few rounds before a kacha sound rang out. The incomparably hard tombstone finally turned into a pile of rubble under the bombardment of the tribulation fire sword. But when the tombstone shattered, Su Yun heard a dong sound, as if something had been opened. Looking towards the tombstone, he saw that there was already a pitch-black hole there. Although it wasn't big, it was enough for people to walk on. The graveyard of the spirit cultivator was not like the graveyard of mortals. Below the tombstone was a coffin, and the spirit cultivator had cultivated for 1,000 years. Their bodies were strong and contained boundless energy. Once they died, how could they dare to be buried? Wouldn't that mean that others would dig up their graves and use their corpses to refine them? Therefore, most spirit cultivator would self-destruct their bodies after death in order to be quiet. At most, they would set up a cenotaph in advance for future generations to worship. So, according to common sense, there should be nothing beneath the grave. However, it was different now. Looking at the demonic chi in the cave, it seemed that there was something extraordinary hidden within. Su Yun secretly rolled his eyes twice, but he was not in a hurry to go down. Instead, he took the pile of broken tombstones and carefully examined them. The tombstone shattered, the inscription shattered, and the words on it no longer overflowed with the power to captivate one's soul. Su Yun carefully examined the inside of the inscription, and realized that the inscription did not seem to be written with ordinary words, but was drawn with profound chi. Not only that, there seemed to be traces of profoundness in the inscription, and every word had several types of energy revolving around it. It was simply like a small array seal that was so exquisite that it left people flabbergasted. And what supported the operation of this seal was the demonic chi that overflowed from the cave entrance. The demonic aura entered the array seal and activated it. Under the blessing of the array seal, it turned into a magical power that could absorb one's soul. When a person's gaze fell on the inscription on the tablet, the effect of the array seal would automatically activate, resonating with the person's gaze and establishing a connection. Then, the processed demonic power would be instilled into the person's body through a channel. What was going on? If the person who set up the formation had the intention to mourn Saint Gard Enmo, why would he do such a thing? Deliberately using this method to attract the attention of others? Su Yun thought to himself as his gaze returned to the pitch-black hole. If he wanted to know the answer, it was actually very simple. As long as he entered the cave, he would be able to see everything clearly. It was impossible for Enmo's corpse to be in the cave, so what could be inside? What was emitting such a powerful demonic aura? Su Yun rubbed his chin and thought for a while before finally deciding to take a look. What he desired the most right now was strength. Whether it was to find his parents or the Suicide Valley, he needed too many things. If there was anything strange inside, wouldn't it be a fortuitous encounter for him? There were some things that would last a lifetime if he missed them. He took a deep breath and stared at the pitch-black hole. In the end, he decided to go down and take a look. He sat cross-legged at the entrance of the cave for a long time, meditating and resting, using pills to mediate. After he had recovered, he held the Tribulation Fire Sword in one hand and the 7th Tier Imperial Equipment Flag in the other and jumped into the pitch-black hole. He jumped into the hole, only to find that the hole was extremely deep, as if he couldn't see the bottom. He didn't know how long he had been falling, but when his feet hit the ground, Su Yun realized that he had landed on a flight of steps. However, what made his scalp tingle was that this flight of steps, which extended for over 100 floors, was actually made of bones. The air was filled with dense demonic aura that couldn't be dispelled. They floated in all directions, and one could vaguely see terrifying wailing faces within the demonic aura. They collided everywhere, floated everywhere, and finally flew up into the sky, overflowing into the world through the hole. It was indeed a different world. Su Yun looked down the stairs, stared at it for a moment, and then walked down. After the stairs, there was a long corridor of white bones. On both sides were pitch-black rock walls, and the distance between the left and right was less than 3 meters wide. There were no lights, but it didn't matter. With Su Yun's cultivation, he could see everything clearly no matter how dark it was. Someone's coming. After taking a few steps, a voice suddenly came out. Su Yun's expression tensed up, the profound chi in his body automatically activated, and looked towards the direction of the voice vigilantly. The voice came from in front of him, and a transparent spirit body suddenly appeared in front of him. This spirit body was erratic, as if it was about to disappear. Su Yun looked carefully, only to see that the spirit body was in the form of a devil cultivator. It was covered in armor, had 2 horns on its head, and had a wide body. Its eyes were scarlet red, and its skin was frighteningly pale. At this moment, it was carefully sizing up Su Yun. Su Yun stared at the spirit body and asked, "Who are you?" However, the spirit body thought for a moment, but did not say anything. Seeing that, Su Yun suddenly understood. This spirit body was deliberately left here by the person who built this place. It was only an extremely minute portion of spiritual force, and this trace of spiritual force was only imbued with the things that its master asked it to do. Other than that, it would not do anything else, and it could not even understand most of Su Yun's words. Its existence should only be to convey some sort of message to the intruder. Su Yun thought, and sure enough, the spirit body began to speak. "This is the cenotaph of the Devil Sect's sect protector, Lord Enmo. According to common sense, others are not allowed to enter this place, or else it would be disrespectful to Lord Enmo. However, since you are already here, then you can go to Lord Enmo's cenotaph to pay your respects, okay?" Although the voice was not mechanical, Su Yun still could not hear any emotion. Without a doubt, this was just a programmed speech. However, Enmo was a senior of the Devil Sect, and he was once a member of the Devil Sect. Now that he had barged into someone else's tomb, it was indeed disrespectful. Su Yun nodded and said, "This junior indeed lacks consideration in coming here. Since that's the case, then this junior will pay his respects and pay his respects to Senior Enmo." The spirit body did not say anything. It turned around and walked forward. Su Yun followed. The journey was smooth and unimpeded. There were no traps or arrays, and it was peaceful the entire time. Finally, at the end of the corridor, Su Yun followed the spirit body to a spacious room. This room was not as narrow as the corridor. It was extremely large, nearly 100 meters tall and 1,000 meters wide. In this room there were 7 huge white bone statues. Judging from the shape of the statues, they were all devil cultivator. Almost every statue had black lines on it, but it was unknown what they were used for. In front of these statues was a 3-meter-tall stone statue. The face of the stone statue was very blurry, and its appearance could not be seen clearly. However, there were 7 horns carved on its head, and the stone statue was dressed in black armor. On its back were 3 long flags, with a saber at its waist and a sword in its hand. From the looks of it, the statue should be the Saint Guard Enmo, and the clothes on his body must be the battle clothes he wore when he was alive. 30,000 years ago, the Devil Sect was attacked. In order to protect the safety of the Devil Sect and protect the true Devil Realm, Lord Enmo led 7 of the strongest Devil Cultivators of the Devil Sect to attack the last palace of the 9-layer Immortal Palace, killing Immortal 9,000 immortal years under the Demon Sword, destroying its leader and causing the Immortal Army to collapse without a fight. However, Lord Enmo did not return and was besieged by the Immortals for 7 days and 7 nights. In order to commemorate Lord Enmo's achievements, the future generations of demons specially built 1,000 cenotaphs, hoping that Lord Enmo's unscattered soul could enter the cenotaphs, reincarnate and revive. This cenotaph is the strongest among the 1,000 cenotaphs of Lord Enmo. This is because the battle armor he wore when he attacked Immortal Jochian. Just then, the spirit body behind Su Yun spoke. Although the voice was not loud, Su Yun was still confused by it, and his heart was palpitating with fear. Immortals? Celestial army? What was that? What was the 9-layered Immortal Palace? Immortal 9,000 years? That should be a very strong existence, right? Enmo actually had the ability to bring only 7 people into the tiger's den and behead the tiger? However, What shocked Su Yun even more was how did the person who built the cenotaph bring In Mo's battle armor back to this place? Thinking about it, the person who built this place was definitely not an ordinary person. It could be said that Su Yun was very unfamiliar with immortals. He had only occasionally seen them mentioned in the books of the Devil sect in his previous life. As for the evil and demon Tao, he had never seen anyone mention them. His understanding of the so-called immortals probably originated from the mortals' understanding of the gods. Since ancient times, immortals and demons had never coexisted. Su Yun had heard of it before. Could it be that other than the true devil realm, there was another immortal realm? Or the true immortal realm? Su Yun thought to himself. This is Lord In Mo's clothes, please pay your respects. At this moment the spirit body spoke. Hearing this, Su Yun nodded. With the devil sect's etiquette, he formed a fist with one hand and knelt down on one knee. After 3 breaths, he stood up. The worship is over. Please leave this place. At this moment, the spirit body behind spoke again. Su Yun nodded and looked around. He discovered that the endless devil chi at the entrance of the cave was emitted from these clothes. Although he knew that these clothes were extraordinary, their devil chi was too strong. It was not something that he could control, so he had no choice but to give up. Devil artifacts were different from ordinary magic treasures. Powerful devil artifacts could easily cause spirit cultivators to lose themselves and be gradually devoured by them. Such a treasure could not be touched without strength. Su Yun was well aware of this point. He did not have the slightest bit of greed towards In Mo's magic treasure. He turned around and walked towards the corridor, preparing to leave this place. However, just as he walked out of this place, a muffled roar suddenly rang out in this spacious stone room. Chapter 510. The sound was dull and extremely oppressive, making one feel as if their blood vessels were about to explode. Su Yun suddenly turned around and looked around. The tribulation fire sword and the 7th-tier imperial equipment were tightly gripped by him. The roar lasted for a full 10 breaths of time before it stopped. Immediately after, one of the 7 huge bone statues in the stone room began to move. The terrifying and ferocious patterns on its surface flickered with a red light, and then it felt the devil chi from In Mo's clothes quickly overflow, converging towards the inside at a speed visible to the naked eye. Very quickly, the red light on the patterns disappeared, and the clothes also stopped releasing devil chi. The scene was silent for about 3 breaths of time. Then, Kacha. A crisp sound rang out in the stone room. Then, among the 7 huge white bone statues, the one in the middle began to move. Its huge and thick arms swayed, and a large amount of sand and stones fell from the sky. Following that was his head, which kept shaking, as if he was struggling to break free from some sort of restraint. Finally, his legs moved forward. It was just 1 step. Dong. Su Yun could feel the entire stone room trembling. The eyes of the giant bone statue that was nearly 100 meters tall began to turn blood-red, and a sharp baleful aura gradually filled the entire space. Su Yun secretly felt the aura around the giant's body and analyzed its cultivation. However, he discovered that the cultivation around the giant was unfathomable and extraordinary. It was definitely not something he could contend against. The giant looked down at Su Yun, and after a moment, waves of grand sounds came out. How could it be such a weak human, and his cultivation is so low? Su Yun frowned, but did not say anything. In this situation, leaving might be the best choice. He secretly looked at the road behind him, but with just a glance, he was extremely astonished. The original bone corridor behind him had disappeared at some point in time, and what replaced it was a thick bone wall. What was going on? Human, don't think about escaping. You have already accepted the experience from Lord Changgu. Before the experience ends, you are not allowed to leave this place, do you understand? The giant seemed to have seen through Su Yun's thoughts and spoke. Lord Changgu? Experience? What exactly is going on? Seeing that the giant did not seem to have any ill intentions, Su Yun mustered up his courage and asked. Experience? Naturally, it was the experience set up by Lord Chong-gu. Lord Chong-gu was Lord In Mo's close friend, and also the leader of the Devil Sect's 7 laws. The model you see now was carved using Lord Chong-gu as a mold, and these 7 people were all the Devil Sect's 7 laws. Back then, Lord In Mo wanted to kill Immortal 9000, and used the method of breaking the leader to defeat the Immortal army, but with his strength alone, it was impossible for him to enter the 9-layer Immortal Palace. Thus, he found the Devil Sect's 7 laws and discussed with them, and together, they killed their way into the Immortal Palace. In the end, Lord Chong-gu was lucky enough to escape from the Immortal Palace and return to the true Devil Realm, but Lord Chong-gu did not give up just like that. He once thought that Lord In Mo still had a chance to survive, and after returning to the Devil Sect, he immediately gathered experts and charged into the 9-layer Immortal Palace to save Lord In Mo, but in the end, he only managed to take back this piece of clothing. In the end, Lord Chong-gu was lucky enough to escape from the Immortal Palace and return to the true Devil World. However, Lord Chong-gu did not give up just like that. He once thought that Lord In Mo still had a chance to survive. After returning to the Devil Sect, he immediately gathered experts and charged into the 9-layer Immortal Palace again in an attempt to save Lord In Mo, but in the end, he only managed to take back this piece of clothing. After the Supreme Expert of the Immortal Army arrived, Lord Chong-gu was chased by the Supreme Expert and was severely injured. He accidentally fell into this mountain range and was unable to return to the true Devil World. At this time, the giant opened his mouth and told him the whole story. My lord hopes that there will be a demon who will inherit Lord In Mo's will. In order to dare to go against the heavens, he has set up this trial. No matter who it is, after entering the cenotaph, if they are willing to worship Lord In Mo's clothes and are willing to leave the cenotaph, they will be able to accept the trial. If they covet Lord In Mo's treasures, they will be killed on the spot by us 7 bone guards without mercy. If they do not worship Lord In Mo, they will also be killed by us without mercy. Demonic ceremony? What if I don't need the demonic ceremony? Kill on the spot, show no mercy, the giant said coldly. When Su Yun heard this, he was shocked. Fortunately, he was careful and used the devil cultivator's etiquette. Otherwise, he wouldn't even know how he died. After the training, what can I get? Su Yun asked again. Perhaps this was what he was most concerned about. However, the giant did not waste any more words. He took a few steps forward and approached Su Yun. He shouted in a low voice, "There's no need to say any more. Human, accept my experience." As his voice fell, the giant actually raised his 2 huge fists and fiercely punched towards him. Seeing that, Su Yun was shocked. How was this training? This was clearly a challenge. He hurriedly activated his imperial equipment, and a pale white chi cover immediately enveloped his body. Dong! Su Yun could feel the chi cover trembling a little. He did not know how powerful the giant was, but he knew that the giant did not use his full strength. Its current strength was probably not something that a spirit master could compare to. Perhaps it was even higher, and should be in existence of Sky Spirit Master. At present, the giant had not unleashed its full strength. It was only using its current strength according to Su Yun's current cultivation. With one punch blocked, the giant immediately raised both of his fists. With a low roar, both of his fists were actually filled with a large amount of blood. Like flames wrapping around his fists, he once again fiercely smashed towards the imperial equipment. Dong! This time, the sound was even louder. The power that erupted from the fist almost knocked Su Yun unconscious. He gritted his teeth and tried his best to support the imperial equipment. However, if this continued, the giant would only consume his own profound energy, causing the imperial equipment to be forcefully removed. Blindly defending was obviously not going to work. Su Yun took a deep breath and looked at the two huge fists that were in front of the chi cover. Suddenly, he removed the imperial equipment and fiercely slashed forward with the tribulation fire. The deathly white tribulation fire stirred up the blazing flames and collided with the huge bone hand like a meteor. The terrifying destructive aura caused ripples to appear in the air. Bang! Another explosion occurred, and the air rippled in all directions. The tribulation fire ruthlessly chopped down on the bone hand. However, the bone hand was not damaged at all. Su Yun's eyes widened. This is impossible. The tribulation fire sword was the most destructive sword out of all the swords he had, other than the death sword. Even Ling Qin used the contracted victory sword could not compare to it. However, facing his full force attack, the skeleton was actually unscathed. How was this possible? Even the tombstone would have a sword mark on it. Do you know how we made it? At this time, the huge bone sculpture spoke again. We are treasures carved by Lord Chang-gu using his own bones as materials. In other words, we are all Lord Chang-gu's bones, and he has bestowed all of his power. Ordinary power cannot harm us. Human, if you want to complete the training, you must leave a scar on my body. Only by leaving a scar on my body can the training be considered complete. Lord Chang-gu has said that those who can injure me can definitely kill me. If you can't injure me, you don't have the qualifications to obtain all of this. Those who can injure me can definitely kill me? These words were not wrong. If he couldn't even injure others, how could he talk about killing them? Su Yun thought coldly. His expression suddenly turned sinister. He kept the tribulation fire, pulled out the death sword again, and fiercely swung it towards the bone hand. He did not activate the divine wind sword technique again, so his attack speed was not fast. At this moment, he had already focused all of his strength on destruction, trying to cut through everything. However, even if the death sword appeared, it could not easily break through the bone sculpture's defense. When the sword fell, the death aura rippled, but the bone hand was still unharmed. It seemed that this training was not easy to complete. Su Yun's face suddenly turned cold. You are still too weak. This trial requires at least a 10th grade of Spirit Master to complete, and you are only at the 6th grade. The difference is too great. The power left behind by Lord Chang-gu and Lord Enimo cannot be used by you, because you are not worthy. The giant shouted loudly, and then waved his arms again, smashing towards Su Yun. At this moment, the speed at which the pair of gigantic fists were waving had increased by several times. Seeing this, Su Yun hurriedly dodged. Dong, dong, dong. As the punches became more and more frequent, the speed at which they were waved also became faster and faster. Not only that, Su Yun realized that the power contained in the giant's fists was also becoming more and more complicated. At first, the fist was only covered in flame-like blood, but as the number of punches increased, devil chi, blood chi, baleful chi, yin chi, killing intent, and so on began to appear on it. In the blink of an eye, 1,000 types of power were concentrated on the fist. The terrifying power made it difficult for anyone to look at it. Their scalps would explode and their hearts would tremble. This was definitely not a power that an ordinary person could withstand. Right now, even if Su Yun was at his peak, it was impossible for him to use a 7th-tier Imperial equipment to receive the giant's punch. He could only rely on his speed to dodge. However, this was not the solution. What should he do? Could it be that he could only sit still and wait for death? Su Yun's eyes flickered. As he dodged the fatal fist, he searched for a way to leave a scar on the giant's body. Suddenly, an idea flashed through his mind. Although he didn't know if this method counted, given the current situation, even if it didn't count as a success, he still had to give it a try. After making his decision, Su Yun's eyes focused. He stared at the giant and leaped forward. Dong! The giant's fists smashed towards Su Yun. He hurriedly dodged, and the two fists landed on the ground. Su Yun took the opportunity to jump up and land on the giant's right arm. Then, he quickly moved and rushed towards the giant's shoulder. It was a fight to the death. Chapter 5:11. Seeing that Su Yun had run onto his body, the giant immediately turned his hand into a fist and grabbed at him. However, Su Yun's movements were too agile. He always dodged to places that the giant could not reach, such as his back, waist, etc., causing the giant's hands to sway randomly and almost lose his balance and fall to the ground. Su Yun took this opportunity to launch a fierce attack on the giant. The death sword continued to strike the giant's body, but the giant's entire body was like the toughest steel in the world. No matter how much strength he used, he was unable to injure it at all. The death sword struck its body and produced a violent sound, but it was completely useless. It could not even create a mark as shallow as a strand of hair. It's a waste of effort. The giant let out a low roar and once again reached his back. But at this time, Su Yun suddenly controlled the profound chi, circled in the air, and suddenly appeared in front of the giant. His expression was focused, both of his hands tightly gripping the death sword, his gaze extremely sharp, fiercely staring at the giant's heart. The profound chi in his entire body was completely released at this moment. Let's go all out. Without holding anything back, he released it all. At this moment, it was as if he would not rest until he died. If this attack continued, Su Yun would definitely not be able to make another attack. In this battle, all of his hopes were focused on this move. The death sword trembled crazily. The sword's body was like the wings of an insect flapping at high speed, and the buzzing sound resounded throughout the entire stone room. A sharp sword intent that caused one's soul to tremble filled the air. He could not delay any longer. The giant was powerful and had an endless supply of power. He was no match for it in a battle of attrition. He could only quickly decide the victor. The giant felt Su Yun's terrifying attack and did not dare to hesitate. As the host of the trial, he had to do his best to test the trial takers. This was his duty and also the meaning of his existence. Immediately, the giant raised his huge fist and let out a furious roar that was like that of an ancient beast. The thousands of types of power in his fist suddenly increased by 3 times in an instant, and fiercely smashed towards Su Yun with an aura that could destroy everything. At this moment, the giant did not seem to be polite and once again increased his strength by several levels. Such a shocking attack was definitely not something that a 6th-grade spirit master could withstand. The giant no longer dared to treat the person in front of him as a 6th-grade spirit master. The fist light flickered, the fist tip attacked, the imposing aura was like a rainbow, the fist that was as vast as a mountain moved quickly behind Su Yun. They were about to collide, but, at this critical moment, Su Yun's body suddenly disappeared. No. Instead of disappearing, it suddenly raised its speed to the limit. Fast. It was so fast that there was no trace of it, as if it had vanished. Wind God's speed. The giant did not even have time to react. Su Yun, who had never used this extreme speed, seemed to have become a completely different person. The fist was dodged. The tip of the fist went straight for the giant's heart. The giant immediately withdrew his fist and tried to stop his attack, but it was too late. Su Yun, who had disappeared, appeared again, but this time, the location where he appeared was extremely shocking. At this moment, he had already landed on the back of the giant's fist. He pulled out the death sword again, stared at the back of the fist, and let out a hysterical roar. Ah! As the roar fell, the death sword roared out, fiercely smashing onto the back of the fist. The sword tip exploded. The endless evil chi was like an exploding river, gushing out in all directions. The thick and astonishing power directly struck the fist forward. The giant was already unable to stop his huge fist. It brought along his own and Su Yun's strength and directly smashed onto his own chest. Dong! The ear-shattering sound of the world exploded in the depths of 1,000 meters. The entire underground trembled crazily. The tame dragonland began to shake. The birds and beasts fled in fright. People looked around in fear. The strange movement caused countless spirit cultivators in the land to be shocked. When he looked at the giant again, he saw that the giant's terrifying fist had pierced through his heart. The pitch-black longsword was still pressed against the back of its fist. Su Yun's face was sinister. He gasped for breath as he held onto the death sword, holding onto his fist. At the end of the sword's strike, he fell to the ground, holding the sword with one hand, panting as he looked at the giant. Although he knew that the giant would not die even if his heart was pierced, he wanted to know if this was considered a success in the trial. Moreover, the heart was the source of this profound skill. Usually, the people who made this kind of treasure would place the source in the heart. If the source was destroyed, even if the giant would not be damaged, it would at least affect its movement. However, Su Yun obviously did not have the strength to fight anymore. I really didn't expect you to use my attack to destroy my body. At this moment, the giant's voice came out again. Does this count as passing the trial? Su Yun stood up and smiled weakly. Of course. The giant nodded without hesitation. It's impossible for me to hurt myself. The reason why it's like this is because of you. This is your method and your ability. So, you have passed the trial. After the giant finished speaking, he raised his hands and pressed them on his chest. The runes on his body suddenly flickered, and the wound on his chest quickly healed. What a powerful force! Su Yun thought to himself. He didn't expect that a mere artifact would be able to use its own power to recover its body. However, a scene that left him dumbfounded appeared before his eyes. After the giant healed his wounds, he actually knelt down on one knee and performed a standard demonic salute. Su Yun was stunned and shocked. It took him a while to regain his senses, but he didn't dare to ask too much. Instead, he asked with anticipation, "Since I've passed the trial, what reward should I get? Is it a peerless secret manual left behind by Lord Enemo or Lord Changgu? Or is it a super profound skill? Or is it an incredible magic treasure? Or is it a world-shaking pill?" Su Yun's heart was itching. It was not easy to pass the giant's trial, but what was even more exciting was this fortuitous encounter. He didn't know what benefits were waiting for him. None. However, the giant gave a heart-wrenching answer. Hearing that, Su Yun clutched his heart and said weakly, "That means I've been busy for nothing?" "Of course not, master." The giant still knelt on one knee and said in a low voice, "No, that's... Wait, what did you call me? Master?" Su Yun's entire body twitched as he stared at the giant with wide eyes. However, at this moment the other 6 giants behind him suddenly moved as well. The loud noise caused by the movement of the incomparably huge body caused the quiet stone room to become extremely noisy. The earth trembled slightly. Su Yun raised his eyes and stared at the giant who was walking towards him step by step. In an instant, he suddenly realized that the stone room was too small. The 7 huge bone sculpture giants with pale white lines all knelt respectfully in front of him. They looked pious, as if they were worshipping a god. Almost at this moment, a ray of light shot out from the foreheads of the 7 giants at the same time. The light quickly converged into a rune in the air, and then the rune quickly descended, directly smashing onto Su Yun's arm. Su Yun was stunned. He immediately raised his arm and looked at his arm. Unknowingly, a skeleton pattern had appeared on his arm. However, this was not the end. At the same time, the Enmo's crown that was being sacrificed was completely vaporized. They were like ghosts, splitting into 7 strands and drilling into the foreheads of the 7 statues. On the foreheads of each statue, patterns of clothing parts appeared. Helmets, breastplates, leggings, cloaks, shoulder armor, wrist guards, boots. What the hell was going on? Su Yun was completely confused. He was extremely suspicious. At this moment, a calm voice suddenly rang out from the stone room. "This is the power that belongs to Lord Changgu and Lord Enemo. These powers have been cultivated by the two of them through countless hardships, so they can't be wasted like this. They will bestow it to you, a fated person. I don't expect you to be able to carry it forward, but I hope that you won't disgrace the reputation of the two lords. Those who have completed the trial, if you have time in the future, I hope that you can return here to pay your respects to Lord Enemo and Lord Changgu. The voice seemed to come from the spirit body, but the voice gradually became weaker and finally disappeared. Su Yun stared blankly at the 7 giants in front of him. His mind was a little blank. After a long time, he finally regained his senses. The power of Changgu and Enemo? Was this it? He looked at the skeleton pattern on his left arm and stretched out his right hand to touch it. However, it was only a touch, and immediately, a throbbing feeling hit his heart. At the same time, a strange connection shot out from the pattern and went straight into his heart. It was almost as if a sudden clap of thunder had established a connection with his heart. At the same time, all the blood in his body began to boil. Su Yun had a strange feeling of his soul flying into the sky. It was not comfortable at all. Instead, he was surrounded by pain. This power was magic power. What a powerful magic power! He had never seen this power before. He gritted his teeth and clutched his left arm. He almost fell to the ground because of the pain. He could only kneel on the ground, holding his arm and trembling slightly. His face was extremely pale, and his cheeks were overflowing with sweat. His eyes had long since turned blood-red. The 7 huge bone sculpture giants were still kneeling respectfully in front of Su Yun. At this moment they seemed to be real statues. The strange skeleton pattern flickered and dimmed. Bits of red light overflowed from the skeleton pattern and entered Su Yun's brain. Gradually, as time passed, the skeleton turned blood-red. However, Su Yun understood. The effect of this pattern at this moment was to transmit information to him. It was transmitting information about the strength of Lord Changgu and Lord Enemo. After an unknown period of time, the skeleton pattern stopped flickering. Su Yun also stopped trembling. He held his left hand with his right hand and tried his best to stand up. At this moment, his expression was extremely ugly. He was panting and his spirit was extremely bad. However, there was an incomparably satisfied smile on his face. I really didn't expect this power to be so terrifying. Is this a power that I can control? He looked at the pattern on his arm, and his gaze returned to the 7 incomparably huge giants in front of him. A sharp light flashed across his eyes. It seemed like all the plans could be brought forward. Chapter 5:12. Su Yun flew out of the pitch-black cave entrance and returned to the ground. At this moment, there was no longer any devil chi in the cave. There were only 7 huge white bone statues and countless cold skeletons left. The previous tombstone was probably used by Changgu to attract people to enter the tomb to inherit the power of the two of them. However, without going through this series of tests, this power could not be easily obtained. Now that the power had been taken away by Su Yun, no one would notice it. Su Yun took out a pill from his ring and swallowed it. Then, he continued to move forward. He didn't know how long he had been in the tomb. He only felt that the current tame Dragonland was much calmer than when he first entered. The smell of blood in the air had dissipated a lot. However, the place he passed by was slowly filled with scars and ruins. A large number of scenes after the battle entered his line of sight. The place that was supposed to be covered with dense trees was now a scorched land. The small river that was supposed to be flowing had already dried up. The ground was full of potholes, and the faint sound of explosions could be heard in the distance. A few tiny black dots were flying and circling above the tame Dragonland. Su Yun looked at those figures and walked towards the tame Dragonland. It seemed that this chaotic battle had entered the climax. Those who were not strong enough were either eliminated or killed. The rest were all people with high cultivation. With the power of Changgu and Enemo, he might be able to use this chaotic battle to practice. In the future, he would be able to deal with Suicide Valley. Su Yun thought as he followed the mountain road that could no longer be called a road and headed towards the top of the land. Slowly, there were more and more corpses on the side of the road. Broken limbs, blood, and internal organs were scattered on both sides of the road. There were men and women dead, and the scene was very miserable. However, most of the space bags on the bodies of the dead had already been taken away. It seemed that Su Yun was not the only one who wanted to rely on this to make a fortune from the dead. Su Yun continued to move forward, all the way to the waist of the river Meridian. Just then, he heard a series of explosions not far away, followed by a series of concentrated shouts and chant. Other than that, there were many strange sounds of treasures being activated. There was a battle? Judging from the sound, there were at least 20 people participating in the battle. Su Yun took out the immortal mystical scarlet blood sword and held it in his hand, borrowing the rocks by the side of the road to hide his body. He carefully looked towards the source of the voice. Generally speaking, against a single enemy, the tribulation fire sword would be more useful, but against a large number of enemies, the immortal mystical scarlet blood sword that used the most subordinate swords would be a sharp weapon, and with the help of the Desolator and the sword formation, the immortal mystical scarlet blood sword would be a trump card that could defeat many. The existence of the Longjin's wristband caused Su Yun's chi to be completely shielded, concealing his body and approaching the location of the battle. However, no one discovered his existence. However, just as he approached the battlefield, waves of dense spatial aura floated over. Su Yun was slightly startled. An existence that could grasp spatial profound skills was not simple. He didn't know how many almighty beings were among these people. Su Yun thought and looked towards the location of the battle, but a strange phenomenon appeared. The battlefield was littered with a large number of corpses that had been dead for a long time. Some of the corpses were badly mutilated, while others were intact. The corpses piled up like a mountain, looking extremely terrifying. Not far from these corpses, there was an incomparably white lotus-like item. Qualification item? Su Yun was slightly taken aback as he looked at that thing in disbelief. Judging from its shape, it was indeed a qualification item, because the shape and appearance of the artifact was informed on the spot. In other words, no one could take out a fake at this time to impersonate it, and carrying a fake would be investigated by the Dark House. Once the fake was found, they would be killed without mercy, so no one dared to act recklessly. Then, if this was true, why would it appear on the side of the road? Moreover, who were these people fighting with? Su Yun looked strangely at the spirit cultivators who were shouting. These 20 or so people seemed to be a group. Those who were proficient in profound skills were controlling the magic treasure at the back, using profound skills to attack forward, while those who were proficient in close combat with true divine spirit chi were charging at the front. However, just as the people in front approached the qualification item, all of them seemed to have frozen in place. Their eyes lost their spirit and they instantly lost their vitality. Then, one by one, they began to fall to the ground without any signs of life. Seeing this, Su Yun frowned and immediately checked those people. He was surprised to find that all of them had lost their souls, leaving only their bodies. Without their souls, these bodies were nothing more than shells. As for those who did not approach the qualification area, they revealed expressions of anger and unwillingness. However, no one dared to act recklessly. Instead, they all kept retreating. This godless space domain is indeed extraordinary. 9 6th-grade Spirit Master existences entered at the same time, but they were actually unable to break through his godless space domain. Damn it! This person is clearly using the qualification item as bait to attract spirit cultivators and seize their souls for his use. The people behind gritted their teeth and said. At this moment, everyone finally realized how astonishing the strength of this existence hiding in his own space was. What should we do now? I'll give it a try. A person volunteered to stand out. His eyes were burning with flames as he stared at the qualification item with determination. Then, his eyes widened and the flames in his eyes shot towards that direction like a poisonous snake. When the flames approached, they spread out and turned into a huge flaming hand that grabbed towards that direction. Crack! A square barrier appeared when it was wrapped by the flaming hand. This barrier was the godless space domain that was hidden beside the qualification item. It was also the unique domain of the special existence that was hidden within. Alright. Seeing that this person had forced the range of the domain to appear, the people beside him shouted and attacked together. In an instant, ice, lightning, strong wind, and other strange and dazzling profound skills were all thrown out and fiercely smashed towards the domain. The air was filled with all kinds of strange profound energy. They crisscrossed and converged towards that strange space like the waves of the river. Judging from the aura and determination of these people, they had to shatter this strange space. Su Yun swept his eyes across the area. There were a total of 14 6th to 7th grade Spirit Master existences. These people's cultivation bases could not be compared to the owner of the domain, but when they were combined, it was not a small force. Judging from the corpses around him, the owner of the domain seemed to have experienced a lot of battles before and had consumed a lot of his strength. Facing everyone's attacks, he had become extremely serious. Within that strange godless space domain, one could vaguely see the figure of a person. He took 3 steps back, took out his flying sword, and circled around with this place as the center. After confirming that there was no one around, he returned to his original place. The group of Spirit Cultivator and the strange Space Cultivator were still fighting, but the Space Cultivator would naturally not sit still and wait for death. These people were on guard and no longer entered his domain, so he could only take the initiative to attack. The surface of the square space barrier suddenly began to squirm violently, emitting a large number of bubbles. Under the wrapping of the wind, fire, and lightning, the bubbles grew larger and larger, and when they reached a certain extent, they finally exploded, directly bringing along the wind, fire, and lightning released by the Spirit Cultivator, smashing towards them. So streams of profound chi wrapped around the spatial blades, crazily slashing towards the Spirit Cultivator. Defense! One of them opened his eyes wide and roared hysterically. Everyone hurriedly stopped their attacks and used their own defensive method. Some pulled out shield-like magic treasure, some used chi to create a barrier, and some directly dodged and escaped. However, the space chi blade was invincible. Those who relied on the barrier magic treasure to defend were instantly cut into several pieces by the space chi blade. Blood flowed. Pieces of flesh fell to the ground. In just one move, a total of 10 Spirit Cultivator had died tragically under the space chi blade. The remaining Spirit Cultivator who had luckily escaped stared blankly at this scene. All of them seemed to have been petrified. Whoosh! At this moment, the spatial barrier moved again. The top of the barrier split open, and several huge white illusory hands of space extended out, grabbing towards the sky. This was actually to capture the souls of the 10 dead Spirit Cultivators. Damn it! Protect everyone! As long as their souls are still there, they can still revive. If they are taken away by this person, then they will really die. The remaining Spirit Cultivator shouted anxiously. Humph, with just you bunch of ants? A hand of space slapped towards one of the Spirit Cultivator. That person's speed was not as fast as the hand of space, so he was unable to dodge in time. His head was smashed into pieces and he died miserably again. When the others saw this, their bodies trembled violently. They were terrified. At this moment, they no longer had any thoughts of saving their companions' souls. They were only thinking about how to escape from this place. Facing such an existence, who else would have the strength to fight? So strong. Su Yun, who was hiding in the shadows, could not help but think. To be able to defeat such a group with just a wave of his hand, how exquisite was the power of this space. However, at this moment, it was an excellent opportunity to make a move. Su Yun leaned on the boulder and stared at the spatial barrier at the side of the mountain in the distance. He raised his left arm and secretly channeled profound energy. Then, with a move of his finger, the patterns on his arm suddenly became hot, and a strange force rushed out from the patterns and into the sky. In almost an instant, the sky darkened as if it was burning. Layers of blood clouds gathered together and circled around like a whirlpool. When the spirit cultivator of the tame dragon land saw this, he knew that there must be an incredible existence using a powerful profound skill. Pow! Su Yun moved his finger. Then boom! A shocking sound exploded, and a blood-red bolt of lightning shot out from the vortex in the sky, falling straight into the land. In an instant, devil chi overflowed in all directions. The eyes of the person inside the spatial barrier slightly tightened. He felt that something was wrong. He turned his head to look to the side, only to see that at the edge of the cliff beside him, there was a 100-meter-tall bone sculpture giant. The giant's blood-red and cold eyes were staring at him like a tiger staring at its prey. It was like a male tiger staring at a jackal. Roar! The giant let out a sky-shaking roar. Its hands overlapped each other and turned into a huge fist-light. It fiercely smashed towards the spatial barrier. Bang! The barrier was like shattered glass, instantly exploding. Chapter 5:13. Clang! The space barrier shattered, and the people inside were directly blasted out. They flew backward and crashed into the mountain wall not far away. The bone statue giant immediately stretched out its hand and grabbed that person. However, that person quickly reacted and hurriedly urged the power of space to cut the giant's hand, intending to cut it off. However, dang! A dull sound rang out, and the invincible power of space was actually unable to cut through the giant's hand. In fact, it didn't even leave a mark on it. How is this possible? That person was extremely shocked. However, he did not know that the giant's body was refined from the bones of the true Devil Realms expert, Chang-gu, and was not something ordinary objects could break through. Even with Su Yun's current cultivation, he could not break through using the Death Sword, let alone his spatial energy. Su Yun ignored the mysterious spirit cultivator who possessed spatial profound energy and walked towards the qualification item that was placed on the ground step by step. In his eyes, nothing was more valuable than this item. Seeing that, a trace of fanaticism flashed past the spirit cultivator's eyes, killing intent flashed. He immediately ignored the giant and rushed straight towards Su Yun. His figure suddenly disappeared the moment he stepped forward, and when he reappeared, he was already in front of Su Yun. This was no longer something that could be done with extreme speed. This was practically teleportation. Too arrogant! The mysterious spirit cultivator sneered. His palm struck out, straight at Su Yun's head, his palm stirring up a large amount of spatial chi. Once it landed, Su Yun's head would definitely split into pieces. But the moment the palm fell, a blood-red sword suddenly shot out from the side of Su Yun's head, the tip of the sword directly pressed against the spirit cultivator's palm, preventing him from falling. Crack! His aura exploded from his palm and spread out in all directions, but it couldn't go any deeper. What? The spirit cultivator's eyes widened, but before he could react, he was once again grabbed by the incomparably huge giant and was tightly held in his hand. Ah! The giant's eyes were blood-red, and a large amount of blood-red aura suddenly overflowed from its body. It clutched this person and roared crazily. The demonic energy in its body was like a poisonous snake, pouring into its body. The demonic chi was like a rope, binding him tightly. After that, the demonic chi actually started to break down his flesh and blood, fusing into his bones. From the looks of it, it was obvious that it wanted to completely destroy his physical body. That person tried his best to twist his body, wanting to break free, but at this moment, His strength was completely sealed by the giant's devil power, and he could not use his own spatial energy at all. In addition to the continuous battles from before, he had consumed a lot of profound strength, and was already powerless to break free. Su Yun picked up the qualification item on the ground and checked it. He found that it was not a fake and immediately turned around to look at the spirit cultivator who was controlled by the giant. The rank of these giants was extremely high, and their cultivation was even higher than his. He was not worried that the spirit cultivator would be able to escape from the giant's palm. I see the corpses on the side of the road. Some of them have been dead for more than 10 days. From this, it can be seen that you have been lying in ambush here for a long time. Then, did you obtain this thing a long time ago? Do you have any other treasures on you? What about the treasures you plundered from the spirit cultivator? If you honestly teach me, I won't kill you. He spoke very slowly, word by word, afraid that this person would not be able to hear him clearly. When the other party heard this, he stopped struggling and his entire body trembled. He stared at Su Yun for a long while and said nervously, "Sir, so you are here to seek wealth? If that's the case, then it would be easy. You can take all of my treasures and profound coins, as long as you don't kill me. Are you willing to cooperate? That's great." Su Yun smiled slightly and then moved his finger. The giant received the order and immediately released the devil chi that was binding the spirit cultivator's hands. However, the moment his devil chi was released, that person suddenly disappeared. Like a bird that had broken free of its shackles, he instantly landed in the sky. "Stinking brat, do you think I will submit to you so easily? Just now I was just careless and was captured by you. Now I am free, and with the profound chi's attribute being space, ordinary people will definitely not be able to catch me. Now let me take your lowly life and let you know the consequences of offending me." The man growled. There was no longer fear or panic in his eyes. Instead, it was filled with anger. "You lied to me?" A trace of killing intent flashed past Su Yun's eyes. The man disappeared again, and when he reappeared, he was behind Su Yun. He quickly waved his palm towards Su Yun's back, but it was not aimed at his body, but at the air. Su Yun suddenly turned around, raised his sword and slashed, but the man disappeared again, and then appeared on Su Yun's back and slapped the air again. Pow! 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 His speed was so fast that it was astonishing. It was as if he had used all his strength and did not hold back at all. The injuries left on his body by the giant did not seem to affect him at all. He waved his palms in the air a total of 72 times. The man disappeared again, and then reappeared in midair. He quickly clasped his hands together and formed a seal. Then, his face turned cold as he shouted, "It's over! Die!" As the sound of his voice faded, he suddenly clapped his palms together. In that moment, the space around Su Yun started to distort, and with him as the center, it started to spin crazily. Space distortion. He wanted to twist Su Yun's body into pieces. However, in that instant, a chi cover appeared and spread out in all directions in a circular manner. The distorted space was blocked by the chi cover and was unable to move anymore. What? The man was shocked as he looked at everything in astonishment. The distorted space was forcefully stopped. "Impossible, my spatial profound energy. It's impossible for anyone to defend against it. This is impossible." The man roared hysterically. "Your spatial energy is indeed very strong, but you are already at the end of your rope. Furthermore, this defensive magic treasure of mine is a top-grade imperial equipment. How can it not be able to block your attack?" Su Yun said indifferently. As his voice fell, the giant once again extended his huge hand and grabbed towards the spirit cultivator. The man gritted his teeth and hurriedly activated his technique again. He disappeared again. However, when he appeared 100 meters away, a pitch-red sword pierced through his chest in almost an instant. The man's entire body twitched, and he spat out a large amount of blood. He suddenly turned his head, only to see that Su Yun had unknowingly stood behind him. "How could it be possible for you to?" The man's eyes widened as he shouted weakly, trembling. "Your spatial profound energy is very strange, but in reality your speed is not fast enough. At least in my eyes, the time it takes for you to use your profound skill to teleport again is enough for me to attack you," Su Yun whispered into his ear. When the man heard this, his eyes almost popped out of his socket. Such a speed! Just how fast was it? With that said, Su Yun raised his hand, and the immortal mystical scarlet blood sword that had pierced through his chest immediately slashed upwards, from his chest to his head. "Since you're not willing to hand over everything you have, then, don't blame me. I can only go and take it myself," Su Yun said indifferently. He waved his hand, and the sword pierced through his head. Blood splattered into the sky, and the profound energy surrounding the spirit cultivator quickly dissipated. However, for an expert of this level, this did not mean that Su Yun. The profound chi in his body was extremely powerful. After cutting it open, the profound chi actually began to heal on its own. From this strength, the opponent was at least an existence at the peak of the 7th grade of Spirit Master. If not for the help of the Devil Bone Giant, he would not be a match for him. Furthermore, the opponent had been fighting for several days, and had consumed a lot of energy, which was why Su Yun was able to win so easily. He once again took out the Tribulation Fire Sword and slashed at his opponent. With the Tribulation Fire slashing down, his body would definitely die and his soul would shatter. This powerful existence that had grasped the spatial profound energy had fallen just like that. Su Yun would not feel the slightest bit of guilt killing such a spirit cultivator. Moreover, in this chaotic battlefield, it was either you kill me or I kill you. Everyone was doing this for their own benefit. The spirit cultivators that had not died had long since run away in fright. Su Yun grabbed the corpse of the spatial spirit cultivator and landed on the ground. He took out a few space bags from his body, then pulled out the immortal mystical scarlet blood sword and threw the corpse into the air, quickly waving it. The sword spun like a storm, chopping the broken corpse into pieces. A rain of blood fell. Su Yun released his profound chi and wrapped it around the rain of blood. Then, he flew towards the Devil Bone Giant and smeared his blood on the patterns on the Devil Bone Giant's body. The blood of a powerful spirit cultivator could increase the power of the Devil Bone Giant, and it was also one of the main ways to increase their strength. This was the information he had obtained from the markings on his arm. The devil was neither good nor evil, and was only born from the obsession in his heart. However, there was one thing that he had to admit, and that was that the way the devil did things would always be much crueler than humans. This spirit cultivator had given Su Yun an extremely considerable income. Of course, the most important thing was the qualification item in his hand. Su Yun did not have any plans to join the Dark House, and this qualification item might be able to sell for a good price. Of course, most spirit cultivators who wanted to join the Dark House wanted to be able to develop in the Dark House and have a good future. Most of these spirit cultivators did not have much money, and if they wanted to find a real buyer, they would probably have to find those who entered the Dark House with other purposes. After all, the Dark House was an alliance of scattered people. Although it covered a large area, its internal relationships were complicated, and there were many sects that were interested in it. The people who came to participate in the chaotic battle this time were not pure scattered people. Even the participants sent by the Chamber of Commerce occupied a large portion of the participants. There were many rich people among the contestants. Su Yun tidied up the place and recalled the Devil Bone Giant. He took out his flying sword and continued towards the center of the tame Dragonland. Although there was a battle here, it did not attract many spirit cultivators. At this moment, an even more intense battle was taking place in the center of the land. Chapter 514. Passing through the center of the tame Dragonland was the station set up by the Dark House. Once they entered the station, they could exchange the qualification item in their hands for the qualification to enter the Dark House. Many people did not know who had the qualification item, so they chose to wait for the rabbit and directly went to the center of the river vein to block it. Anyone who wanted to pass through the center of the river vein would definitely have an item on them and would be attacked by them. At this moment, 3 qualification items had already appeared in the center of the tame Dragonland. Hundreds of spirit cultivators were fighting for these items. The scene was littered with corpses and blood covered the ground. The destructive and violent aura in the air did not dissipate. As he approached the center of the area, Su Yun landed on the ground. The scene was very chaotic, but those who could come here were either outstanding experts or groups of more than 10 people. Rogue cultivators no longer had any advantage here. Su Yun got off the flying sword and stepped on the jagged rocks, carefully approaching the center of the land. However, before he could get close, he heard a large number of explosions coming from afar, followed by a suffocating true divine spirit chi. Someone was approaching? Su Yun thought to himself. However, before he could react, he heard another violent explosion in front of him. Then, a figure flew over from the front and directly fell in front of him. Su Yun looked up and saw that this person's entire body was covered in wounds from sharp blades. His skin was torn and his flesh was torn. It was a miserable sight. He was not dead yet. His body was twitching as he fell to the ground. He stared at his pale face and tried his best to stand up. His right hand was still tightly gripping onto a long blade, as if he still wanted to fight. But at this moment, another figure quickly ran over and hugged this person. Su Yun looked over and found that this person was a beautiful woman. "Feng! Enough, stop fighting! Give up!" the woman cried, her voice incomparably hoarse. "I told you before, I have to enter the Dark House. Otherwise, how can I have the power to protect you? All the cultivation conditions provided by the Dark House are not something those small sects in the wilderness can compare to. As long as I enter the Dark House, I will definitely be able to stand out." The man pushed away the woman beside him and said in a hoarse voice, "But if this continues, you will die." The woman cried, "I won't give up." The man gritted his teeth. "Then, you have to do your best to fight for it. Don't just talk without taking action. I have seen many stubborn fellows. People like you are just a group of incompetent people." Just at this moment, a mocking laughter came from the front. Su Yun looked over, only to see that it was a spirit cultivator with sturdy muscles all over his body. He was covered in thick red armor with an iron helmet on his head, revealing only 2 vicious eyes. The man carried a gigantic black 2-handed axe and walked towards the 2 of them step by step. When he saw Su Yun, he immediately snorted, "You ant over there, quickly scram! Otherwise, I'll kill the 2 of them and send you off. Get lost!" Hearing that, Su Yun did not say anything, and directly lowered his head and walked forward. But before he could take more than a few steps, he was stopped, and a huge fist smashed directly at his face. Su Yun immediately formed a fist with one hand and released a large amount of profound chi. Dong! The 2 fists collided, and the tyrannical force was repelled. Su Yun did not move an inch, but the man was forced to retreat. He looked at Su Yun in surprise. Although it was just one move, he could tell that the other party was not weak. "You want to kill me?" Su Yun raised his head and squinted his eyes. "Brat, it seems like you have some ability, but don't be too complacent. In front of my absolute power, you will always be a weakling." The muscular spirit cultivator coldly snorted. "Damn it, what an arrogant fellow!" The spirit cultivator, who was covered in wounds, clenched his teeth, suddenly roared and rushed over. "You're courting death!" The muscular spirit cultivator snorted in disdain. He suddenly raised his 2 axes and chopped towards the man's head. An astonishing true divine spirit chi descended. It was extremely terrifying, The force was so strong that it made people tremble. When that person saw this, his face turned pale. He quickly raised his weapon to block, but with his strength, it was impossible for him to contend against the person in front of him. Clang! The long blade in the man's hand blocked the axe, but it only lasted for less than a breath of time before it immediately split into two halves and shattered. Crap! That person's face changed drastically. The axe pierced through the blade and fell straight down, chopping towards his head. It was too late to dodge. His eyes widened as he stared blankly at this scene. His eyes were filled with fear. However, at this critical moment, a pair of white hands suddenly reached out from the side and quickly grabbed the handle of the axe in an attempt to stop it. Rue 1. The man called Li Feng was stunned. The woman gritted her teeth and appeared in front of him at some point in time. She held the axe tightly with both hands, wanting to stop him, but her strength could not compare to the other party's. The axe continued to fall quickly, directly chopping the woman's shoulder. Blood immediately gushed out, and the woman's left shoulder was almost chopped off. One of her arms immediately lost its strength. The axe descended again. Ah! The woman let out a painful cry. No. The man's eyes were bloodshot, and the fear in his eyes disappeared without a trace. He held the broken blade tightly and stabbed towards the muscular spirit cultivator, but with a clang sound, the broken blade could not even pierce through the armor and was directly bounced off. A weakling like you wants to enter the dark house? Hee, even if you get the qualification item, the people of the dark house probably won't dare to take you. It's better if you die early. Ha ha ha! The muscular spirit cultivator laughed out loud and directly raised his leg to kick the man. The man's body immediately flew out and fell onto a boulder not far away, almost rolling down the cliff. Next, it's time to take care of you. The eyes under the helmet of the muscular spirit cultivator flashed with a trace of viciousness. Suddenly, he held the axe with both hands and raised it up. He stared at the head of the woman in front of him and fiercely chopped down. There was not the slightest bit of mercy, and there was not the slightest bit of tenderness towards the fairer sex. This was already a fatal blow. The woman was powerless to resist. At this moment, her profound chi was exhausted, and even standing was a problem. How could she dodge this fatal blow? Facing the descending axe, she could only close her eyes and quietly wait for death to descend. Rue 1. The eyes of the man who was on the verge of fainting cracked as he looked over in pain. He shouted hysterically, but he was powerless. The difference in strength was too great. The large axe whooshed down. The muscular spirit cultivator was like a merciless executioner, without the slightest bit of emotion. If one wanted to talk about emotions, then the only thing that remained was the ridicule and excitement in his eyes that were revealed inside his helmet. There was also endless anticipation, as if he was looking forward to the next scene. However, just as the axe was about to split the female spirit cultivator in front of him in half, a scarlet-red sword suddenly flew over and pierced through the axe like a red bolt of lightning. The huge axe blade directly broke and spun in the air before finally landing on a rock 100 meters away. The muscular spirit cultivator was stunned. The remaining man and woman were also stunned. You haven't answered my question yet. Don't ignore me. Tell me, were you trying to kill me just now? Su Yun put down the immortal mystical scarlet blood sword in his hand and said indifferently. Only then did the muscular spirit cultivator come back to his senses. Seeing that the weapon in his hand had already broken, his heart suddenly jumped. At this moment, he finally understood how big the gap between him and the guy in front of him was. Facing Su Yun's words, how could the muscular spirit cultivator dare to be arrogant again? He hurriedly took a few steps back and said with a trembling voice, "Of course not. I have no enmity with you, so why would I kill you? I'm just targeting the two of them." But in the next second, the muscular spirit cultivator's neck was grabbed by a hand, and then suddenly moved over. It was Su Yun's hand. At this moment, The monarch occult force in Su Yun's body was activated. The thick and vast true divine spirit chi was like Mount Tai, adhering to every part of his body. The man struggled with all his might, but he found that Su Yun's hand was like an iron pincer. No matter how hard he struggled, he was unable to move it away. The tighter his grip on his neck became, and the magic treasure that was wrapped around it had already changed shape and was completely destroyed. The muscular spirit cultivator was already having difficulty breathing, and even speaking was extremely difficult. Su Yun grabbed him, turned his head and said to the man who was on the verge of fainting, "Does this person have a qualification item on him?" He didn't. The man hesitated for a moment before opening his mouth. "Since you don't, then why did you fight with him? The one who has the qualification item is his boss. I want to snatch his boss's qualification item, but you were almost killed by his subordinates?" Su Yun said indifferently, but the strength in his hand suddenly doubled. In an instant, the muscular spirit cultivator's neck suddenly broke, and he died, his head falling to the ground. He casually threw the corpse on the ground, but did not add any more slashes, allowing his soul to escape. Even if his soul recovered, he had lost his cultivation and was no longer a threat. "I admire you for being willing to fight for the people you love, but people have to act according to their abilities. You have to be clear about everything in front of you. Right now, you are simply courting death by snatching the qualification item. Let's go, leave the tame Dragonland as soon as possible and cultivate honestly. If you are unwilling and still covet that qualification item, then be prepared to be killed," Su Yun said indifferently. He then ignored the man and woman and walked straight forward. The man stared blankly at Su Yun, who was leaving, and a moment of confusion appeared in his heart. However, he quickly came back to his senses and hurriedly ran to the side of the woman called Yuan-Wan to help her up. "Yuan-Wan, are you all right?" the man said anxiously. "I'm fine. Feng, give up, don't enter the dark house. That lord is right. It's enough for us to cultivate on the ground, isn't it?" the woman said weakly with a pale face. "Good. All right, I promise you, I won't enter the dark house. I promise you." Li Feng couldn't help but nod as he looked at the woman and couldn't help but cry. Chapter 5:15. Boss? Thugs? It seemed that there were quite a few people from the Chamber of Commerce here. Although Su Yun did not spend too much effort to kill the spirit cultivator with true divine spirit chi, this did not mean that the boss of the spirit cultivator was someone to be trifled with. When Su Yun arrived at the center of the river Meridian, the place was already in a mess. The place that was originally a mountain was now razed to the ground. Not only that, the entire place was filled with potholes, crushed stones were everywhere, there was no vegetation, no traces of beasts, only blood and corpses. A large number of spirit cultivators were fighting each other. Many of them were fighting each other, while many of them were watching from the side. The situation here was complicated. Some people were doing it for fame and fortune, while others were doing it for revenge. After all, in order to snatch the qualification items along the way, many spirit cultivators had formed an irreconcilable hatred. Now that these people had bumped into each other, how could there not be sparks? At this moment, Su Yun suddenly felt a little uncomfortable. He looked around and found a pair of eyes staring at him. The owner of this pair of eyes was none other than the old acquaintance he had met when he first entered the tame Dragonland. The heavy sword Hua Yashan. Just as Hua Yashan was looking at him, the people with him also looked over. In an instant, the group of people all pulled out their swords and stared at Su Yun with unfriendly expressions. Su Yun had killed their people, so in their eyes, Su Yun was naturally an enemy. Su Yun was also well aware of this point. However, the current situation was chaotic. If he kept his strength, he would have a higher chance of survival. Right now, it was not suitable to fight with this group of people. Su Yun thought to himself as he looked left and right. In the end, he confirmed a group of people. "It's that guy who tricked us. Big Brother Hualu, Let's go and settle the score with him now, Mowgli said in a low voice to Huloo and the others beside him. Huloo ignored him and shifted his gaze to the man wearing the bamboo hat in front of him. He called out, "Big brother! There's no need to say any more." The man wearing the bamboo hat said coldly, "I let him go before because I was worried that he would be plotted against. Now that I'm here, I think that brat is alone. There's no need to be afraid. Go, capture him. If you want to kill him, you can do whatever you want." "Yes, big brother." Huloo, Mowgli and the rest were overjoyed. The group of them immediately walked towards Su-Yun. Hua Yashan opened his mouth. He wanted to say something, but in the end, he did not. Although he and Su-Yun had participated in the competition at the same time, the two of them did not have much of a relationship, so Hua Yashan naturally would not offend Huloo and the others for Su-Yun. Seeing Huloo and the others walking towards him with unfriendly expressions, Su-Yun did not panic. Instead, he stood in place and looked at them. "Brat, there's a path to heaven, but you refuse to take it. There's no door to hell, but you barge in. Let's see where you can run to this time," Huloo said coldly, his pace getting faster and faster. But at this moment, Su-Yun, who was standing, suddenly turned around and walked towards a large group of spirit cultivators not far away, and directly entered the group of spirit cultivators. When Huloo and the rest saw this, they hurriedly stopped in their tracks. "That guy. What's going on? Could it be that he isn't alone? Those guys are from the Black Fish Chamber of Commerce. Could he be a member of the Black Fish Chamber of Commerce?" Mowgli was stunned. "How is this possible?" Huloo clenched his teeth and said solemnly, "Let's take a look first. I think that guy saw us coming to settle the score with him and purposely hid in the Black Fish Chamber of Commerce. Don't worry, he will be thrown out very soon. If he angers the people from the Black Fish Chamber of Commerce, he will even die at the hands of those experts." As soon as Huloo finished speaking, everyone nodded and looked at him from afar. "And over here, how dare you? Who are you? Get lost. Don't you know that our guild master is resting here? Where did this wild cultivator come from? Hurry up and leave." Seeing Su-Yun approaching, a few thugs from the Black Fish Chamber of Commerce immediately rushed over and shouted coldly. Su-Yun glanced at the crowd and cupped his fists. "Are all of you from the Black Fish Chamber of Commerce? I want to make a deal with your esteemed guild master. If you are interested, scram. Didn't you hear what we said? Hurry up and get lost." Before Su-Yun could finish speaking, a tall and sturdy spirit cultivator dressed in black walked over angrily with a large blade in his hand. "Can't you let me finish?" Su-Yun frowned. "Good. I'll let you speak." The big-sized man roared. He actually gathered his profound chi and slashed at Su-Yun's head. Although this big-sized man was as thick as a bear and used a large blade, his speed was shockingly fast. Moreover, his aura was actually swift wind spirit chi, which was truly unexpected. However, when this swift and violent attack was about to reach Su-Yun, it suddenly stopped. That person was shocked. He looked up, only to discover that Su-Yun had unknowingly extended a hand, his fingers accurately blocking the terrifying blade. What? That person could hardly move his eyes. The speed that he had always been confident in was actually unable to withstand a single blow from this person. "I told you, I just want to make a deal with your guild master," Su-Yun said indifferently, then exerted force with his finger, slightly twisting it. The black blade immediately shattered. Following that, Su-Yun walked straight inside. When the big-sized man saw this, he immediately dodged, his eyes filled with fear. The others also saw this and realized that this person was so strange. They were naturally extremely vigilant, but the remaining people were different from the big-sized man. They all stood in front of Su-Yun and stared at him like tigers watching their prey. Seeing that, Su-Yun understood why these people were worried. Indeed, in such a chaotic situation, everyone had to be careful. Anyone could be an enemy. If anything happened to their guild master, These people would not be able to bear the consequences. But if he was too careful, wouldn't he be unable to do anything? Su Yun secretly took a deep breath, and his figure suddenly disappeared. Everyone was shocked. A few of the experts from the Chamber of Commerce noticed Su Yun's figure and immediately rushed over. Their cultivation was much higher than Su Yun's, but their speed was much slower. When they locked onto Su Yun, he was already standing beside a fatty who was surrounded by everyone. From start to finish, the fatty was looking at Su Yun. Facing Su Yun's rude and sudden appearance, he did not reveal any surprise or panic, and maintained his calm expression. "I want to make a deal with you." Su Yun was the first to speak. "Who are you?" The fatty did not immediately agree and asked in return. "From the current point of view, a merchant." "Merchant? Humph, do you think anyone can do it?" the fatty said. "In that case, you're not willing to complete this deal with me?" Su Yun shrugged his shoulders, looking as if he didn't care. "If that's the case, then the one who loses is you. Since you're not willing, then I'll go find the next one." After he finished speaking, he was about to move again. After all, the experts from the Blackfish Chamber of Commerce were already closing in. But at this moment, the fatty raised his chubby hand and raised it up high. In an instant, the approaching experts all stopped in their tracks. Seeing that, Su Yun's gaze fell on the fatty. "Tell me, what kind of deal do you want to make with me?" the fatty said indifferently. "Naturally, it's a business transaction." Su Yun smiled faintly. "You probably came here for the qualification item, right? I have one here. If you offer a reasonable price, I can consider selling it to you." "You have a qualification item?" The fatty was obviously a little surprised. He looked Su Yun up and down, and then revealed a strange smile. "Young man, did you come to find me alone for this? Don't you know where this is? This is a chaotic battlefield. Killing people here is not illegal. Now you tell me that you have a qualification item on you, aren't you afraid that I'll steal it?" "If I was afraid, do you think I would still look for you?" Su Yun asked. The fatty knew that Su Yun was not an idiot, and he also knew that if such a person did not prepare a way out for himself, he would not dare to look for him. He smiled and said, "All right, I was thinking too much." "Then, how much are you willing to pay?" "This kind of thing, with it means that you can enter the dark house. How many people want it, but you actually sold it? That's strange, but kid, my price won't be too high. After all, there are 3 of them here. Although there are many people fighting for them, it doesn't mean that I don't have a chance. How about this? A qualification item can receive 10 million profound coins. Including its own value, I'll estimate it to be 20 million. How about it? If you can accept this price, we'll make a deal. If you can't accept it, then you can find another buyer." 50 million. Without waiting for the fatty to finish speaking, Su Yun interrupted him and said, "Impossible. 50 million? Impossible. You're asking for too much." The fatty immediately shook his head and straightforwardly refused. 50 million. This was too much. The Dark House was recruiting people, but if they spent 50 million, they would more or less suffer some losses. At the very least, they wouldn't be able to recover for a few years. However, Su Yun's actions were even more straightforward than the fatty's. He cupped his fists and smiled, but didn't say anything. He turned around and was about to leave. When the fatty saw this, he was stunned for a moment and hurriedly said, "Wait a moment, sir. What is it? You accept?" Su Yun turned his head and asked. The fatty hesitated for a moment and said in a low voice, "Can't we discuss it again? 50 million is too much. How much do you think this qualification item is worth?" 30 million. No more. 30 million? Su Yun shook his head and a glint flashed across his eyes. He said, "President, you are the president of the Chamber of Commerce, so you must have more experience than me. I'm afraid your understanding of the Dark House is not inferior to mine. You should know how difficult it is to insert people from your own Chamber of Commerce into the Dark House. You should know how many Chamber of Commerce have sent people to the Dark House's recruitment this time. Although I don't know why your Chamber of Commerce wants to send people to the Dark House, I know that this must be related to business. However, there are only 10 qualification items to enter the Dark House, and there are tens of thousands of people competing for them. You should know how small the chances are. If you don't pay a price, how can you succeed? How can you do big things? Furthermore, an ordinary member of the Dark House spends millions of profound coins to cultivate every year. A qualification item is only worth 50 million. Is that still expensive? The current situation was grim. Su-Yun wanted to get rid of this hot potato as soon as possible. If it was outside, he would not send this thing to the auction house to be auctioned. This treasure was worth at least 100 million. After all, once he entered the Dark House, it was equivalent to not having to worry about food and clothing. The annual benefits were so good that it was intoxicating. This was the guarantee of spending a lot of money to buy a lifetime. When the fatty heard this, he hesitated. His fat face trembled as he paced back and forth. In the end, he made a decision. With a trace of determination on his face, he turned his head to Su-Yun and said, "All right, 50 million, then 50 million. All right." Su-Yun nodded in satisfaction and said seriously, "A total of 60 million profound coins. Hand over the money and hand over the goods." What? The fatty was dumbfounded. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.